Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zach Cherry. With me, as always, is.
You're the best. The best. Eddie of Edward is Truth.
And today we are talking about Jason Lives, aka Friday the
Yeah.
13th, Part 6. And this was released August 1st, 1986. Oh, we've got twinning
Blu-rays.
Blu-rays, yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
from the Scream Factory box set, right?
Yeah. Got it.
Very, very good. Yeah, I've got mine. It's up here as I point. If you are listening, I'm pointing to a thing. I think yours is just off camera. We can't see
It's
it
just off.
here.
It's just where the
Yeah.
feed is. If you're trying to picture it in your head,
Yeah.
why I don't
Uh
know. But
Amethyst Frost is saying, I think we're dead meat. Uh,
well, what
real
were you
dead
gonna?
meat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you gonna be when you grew up? Anyway.
Um okay.
Yeah.
Um
You want
so
to just do a
we've
premise that we
No,
can
no, no,
dive
no,
in?
no. We can
Okay.
we can ease our way into it.
Okay. Okay.
So obviously we've been making our way through the Friday the 13th franchise, and we're doing it very sparingly. Like there is a Friday the 13th this week, so we only do it when there are Friday the 13th. We did do Jason or Freddy versus Jason, but since that's more of a whatever
There's no mention of Friday the
situation,
13th in that movie,
and
so
it's not
yeah.
even really a Friday the 13th movie,
No, it
like
isn't.
yeah, by design. So
Or a
like
Nightmare on Elm Street movie, really.
but it was more nightmare than it was.
I take umbrage
Yeah.
with that, but you can hear my case on that episode.
Yeah. I mean, I just from the standpoint that it was New Line Cinema and
Mm.
Bob Shea and they were producing it. So it was like
Robert Englund was playing Freddy.
yeah, there was more attachment to that and even like there was flashbacks to nightmare movies, whereas like anything Friday the 13th um lore was just recreated or like the
Mother's got something she wants you to do. Yeah,
yeah,
and that's just
exactly.
Freddy. Even Betsy Palmer was Fredified. Or Pamela Voorhees, not Betsy Palmer.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so yeah, we're here 6 films in now for
Yeah.
Friday the 13th. We're gonna do our rankings, and also everyone who's with us right now in the live stream chat because we record these live.
Hmm.
You're welcome to let us know as well. If you want to just do the six that we've currently covered, which I guess would include, Freddy versus Jason as well. Or if you want to just give us your full Friday the 13th ranking. And even if you're listening to this or watching this in the future, let us know in the comments what your rankings are. But maybe this is the best way to kind of like segue into where we kind of stand, you and I, Edward, with Friday the 13th,
Yeah.
Jason Lives.
Oh, so you want me to go first?
Do you want me to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Uh, I'll go from the bottom, so things will only get better. This is the order I would watch the ones we've discussed.
So I'm gonna have to
Uh,
do that too to
yeah.
okay.
Or you can go in reverse. You've done it before.
Mhm.
Um, I'd start with Jason Lives, the one we're discussing today, which means it's at the
At the
bottom.
bottom, yeah.
Then next, I would watch. Oh, that's not right. I did this ranking a while ago, and I already don't agree with it. Okay, so next I would watch Freddy versus Jason.
Okay.
Then next I would watch Friday the 13th Part 3.
Okay.
Then I would watch the final chapter. Then I would watch OG Friday the 13th. Then I would watch A New Beginning. It brings me that much joy.
Okay.
Part 5.
Yeah.
And then I would watch Part 2. How about
Okay.
you?
Very good. Okay, so I'm just to be consistent with you. Okay, so we're doing the 7 movies. We're including Freddy versus Jason now.
Yes,
For me, Freddy versus Jason is at the bottom.
of course.
I can't with it.
I know, I know.
Then it would be Jason Lives.
Mm.
Next. So that would be in sixth, and this is just the 7 that we're ranking.
Hmm.
Part 3. Um, How many more do I have left? Four? Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, the final chapter, and this was very interesting to me because the last time I watched it, like I've always loved final chapter, and it was always like, right up there with like, could have been the first or the
Yeah.
second. But the most recent time I watched it, I was kind of like, like seeing the cracks and just being
Yeah.
like, well, I'm not as entertained by this. There's some lag and stuff. Um, so that dropped for me. Not a lot. I still think that we're in good territory here. I think,
Yeah.
the first five are, you know, amazing.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, so then after that, like moving up, I would say part five.
Mm.
Um, and then just because I love like it's the vibe of the first two, I would say so the original and
Okay.
then part two. I think the part two, aside from the fact that it doesn't have Betsy Palmer doing Mrs. Voorhees, I think that part two improves upon everything in part one in every way. But those first two movies, they have that like that East Coast summertime vibe that I don't think like exists in any of the other Friday the 13th movies,
Right. It's hard to replicate. Or
especially with
I guess it's hard to replicate in other places, especially
yeah,
when what?
especially like this particular Jason Lives that we're talking about today. So
Oh God.
yeah, so I guess so moving in the order that I would get, like from top to bottom, two, one, five, four, three, six, Freddy versus Jason.
I could never do that without looking at my phone or my notes. Good for you.
Yeah.
Uh,
But yeah, there's Amethyst, and I guess this is an order of best to worst. So four, two, one, three, five, six. And he says Freddy versus Jason would probably be between three and five. Grant Dempsey. I see. Now I don't know if people are going in reverse order or are ordering. 5-2, Freddy versus Jason. 3-6-1-4.
I feel like
Um,
five is probably at the bottom and four is probably at the top there,
I think
right?
so. Yeah, I think so.
Which is understandable. A lot of people
Oh,
feel that way about five.
oh no, I think that's Grant is saying that his placement of four is a hot take. So I think that four is actually,
Oh, so
yeah,
five is at the top? Oh, I
five is
love
at the top.
you.
Yeah.
That's
Uh,
so cool. Nobody feels the same way that I do.
Tamika, all eight Canon Fridays plus Freddy versus Jason and Friday 2009 ranked 4, 2, remake,
Okay.
original,
Hmm.
7, 6, 8, 3, 5, Freddy versus Jason.
Wow.
Yeah, I
Okay.
get so Tamika, you don't even consider the Jason Goes to Hell and Jason X canon.
Well, she said original like eight,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
yeah, and then
canon. But
the
no,
the
but no, she
remake.
said canon. So it's just like
Canon 8.
that's
Oh,
not
okay.
even
So they're not
canon.
even so that well, I mean, do they really feel that connected to anything that Paramount did? No.
No. But I really love because Arrow just put out like the 4Ks of they already had the remake or the reboot, but then they had
Yeah.
Jason Goes to Hell and Jason X just recently released. And I'm kind of obsessed with like the the box art for them, but I kind of want to buy them.
Mm.
And they're all like it's sort of like the same theme. It's like a tear
Hmm.
through Jason's mask
Um,
motif. So you know how I love like consistency, but also like a little bit of nuance with
yeah,
each one, because
sure.
I can see them doing that for the entire collection if they were to acquire the distribution rights.
Nice.
What else we have? JR 2-1, Freddy versus Jason 4-3-6-5.
Okay.
22.8 says 2-1, 5-3-4-6, Freddy versus Jason. Sarah is saying, I make no apologies. I'd rather watch Freddy versus Jason than this. At least it's fun. So we've got okay,
Oh!
so we've got a lot of, so okay, so this was something that we had always been concerned about because this format of the live stream is relatively new.
Hmm.
But we always worry that like if we have similar opinions, because neither Edward or I really like we don't respond to Jason Lives the same way a lot of people do, because like some people consider this their favorite.
Yeah.
So I would have been afraid that this would have just been an echo chamber of you and I like we're just tossing it back and forth, being like, well, fuck that and fuck this, and like that kind of attitude. But having the live stream like allows some pushback, or just people to kind of, if
Sure.
we have a differing opinion or a question about like why is this something that someone might respond to, people can chime in and tell us why. So actually,
Sure.
that's a good segue to mention the my Patreon account. So if you want to support me and my main channel or the podcast itself, you can head over to patreon.com/ZackCherry. And with that, if you are subscribed at the Freddy Krueger tier, which is $5 a month, you'll have access to join us every Monday, or at least like 4 Mondays a month
Yeah.
for the Cherry Picker and the live streams that we do and be part of this. And once a month, so this is the fourth episode we do every month, we turn it over to you. So this is the Patreon's choice. You get to nominate, as a Freddy Krueger, nominate a movie or a topic or whatever that is horror related that you want us to cover, and then you all get to vote on it, and whatever wins is what we discuss for our episode at the end of the month. So you can head over there now, and I haven't even put up this month's
Oh,
poll yet, but everyone's already made their nominations, and this happens every month. Last month, I believe Companion was the movie
yeah.
that was chosen. So a
Good
lot of
choice,
benefit
guys.
to, yeah, to
Hmm.
being a Patreon supporter at the Freddy Krueger tier and being part of this. And it's a really fun interactive experience. And there's quite a few people here tonight because this is a popular movie, and I'm looking forward to hearing some pushback and getting, having people tell us that our opinions are wrong.
Sure.
But with that said, I do want to thank a few of my top tier Patreon supporters. So to the Michael Myers tier, thank you to Kyle Beard, Ali Hamouche, Shane Allingham, Tim McKay, Stephanie Starbright, Horror Slut 95, Traj 125, Bruce the Genetic Jackhammer Rando, Gary Blasick, Michael Boswell, and then the Ghostface supporters, thank you to Eric Champney, Sam Levy, Daniel Saturn, Baby Ghoul, Garrison Nichols, and Craig Lynn. A lot of these people are also here right now joining
Hmm.
us. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, Edward, do you have a premise?
Yeah, I got
And
one.
also, where
Uh,
can this be watched? Yada, yada, yada.
let me answer your queries in the order in which they were posed.
Sure.
Do you care about a voice for this one?
Well, what voice would you conceivably do it in?
I just as soon just use my own.
Okay.
We should do a poll beforehand though to see like what voices everybody wants to hear in the feed,
Yeah.
if they have any like special requests. But in the meantime, here I'll try. I'll do the usual one. I'll give it
Yeah.
at least its due respect, the same I would for nominally any other film.
Mhm.
As Tommy Jarvis exhumes the body of Jason Voorhees to cremate the corpse, he inadvertently revives his childhood adversary in time for Friday the 13th, setting the stage for a new series of murders to prevent and a new set of characters to convince that once again, Jason lives. That's the best I could
Dun,
do.
dun,
I
dun.
couldn't
Very
find a way
good.
to incorporate part six in there. Maybe I could have found like, but will he part
Part
six?
six? Yeah.
Murders? I don't know. I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah.
But I got Friday the 13th and I got Jason Lives in there. So
Hmm.
there you go, kids. That's all
Absolutely.
I'm going
Very,
to do.
very, very good.
And if you want to stream it, because you're short on funds and you don't already own it, it's on Pluto TV at the moment with ads, or
Pluto.
find your individual rental on your favorite streamer,
Hmm.
and also available in numerous Blu-ray releases. We already indicated the box set that Shout Factory dropped. There's also the Black Collector's Tin that was released about a decade before that, and
Oh, well, that's obsolete.
no, but so many collections. If you're not into like all the special features or don't want it to take up more space, and you can get it on its own too on Blu-ray. There has yet to be a 4K release of this film on its own, but keep wishing.
Yeah.
And that's it, right? Yeah.
Eddie, you're getting a request from JR to do Rusty Nail from Joyride for the intro. Ne next
Ooh.
next time.
Rest in
or just something to pull
candy
out of your
cane.
hat. Yeah.
Candy cane. There's a
Candy
little
cane.
taste. Oh
Yeah.
God, I fucking love Ted Levine doing that voice on
Yeah.
Joyride. But we covered that, so yeah.
Yeah. Amethyst is saying whenever we do New Blood, you can do Tina's mom. So she's saying,
Tina!
Tina!
The new blood!
I
Or I
want
could
to
like,
see
yeah.
I want to see like a fan fiction movie of just like all like the moms of the Friday the 13th franchise. So like Tina's mom, just like
Oh
lunching with
God.
like Pamela Voorhees and who else do we have there?
Oh,
Uh
there were other mothers. Oh, Ethel. She's a
oh,
mother from part
absolutely.
five.
Ethel must be she is the grand dame of the
Yeah.
table.
Nobody
She's
will
just
like
she's just
her.
chopping up her
Yeah.
chicken.
Yeah. And Mrs. Jarvis, certainly.
Yeah, she can be there.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
of course, oh, somebody has to be on the phone with with Alice's mom, just going like, no, she just has to sort this out in her own time, and this is the only way she knows how. And then just
I
hang up.
feel I feel like Alice's mom, like we never see her, but I just get the vibe like she's sort of like the like Sue Snell's mom
Yeah.
sort of thing. It's just like she'll forget all about this.
Uh-huh. The doctor says she's young enough
Yeah.
that she'll forget all about it in time. Oh, Priscilla Pointer,
hmm
R.I.P. But okay.
hmm
So this movie, would you remember your first exposure to it?
So yeah, I mean, as I've said with like the past episodes, I think I was about 13 or 14. I just, was first really getting, I mean, I'd already been into horror, but it was sort of like I'd already exhausted the Halloween franchise because
Hmm.
I'd watch them and then I would like go back to the video store and like, okay, I'm gonna rent Halloween 4 again and I'm gonna rent Halloween The Curse of Michael Myers again and saw them like a million times. I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
I need to move on to a new franchise because I'm like that. I'm obsessive.
of course.
It's hard to branch out when I already have the things that I like.
Hmm.
But I knew like, there's gonna be a time where I have to try it. So I think I waited until my parents were like on vacation or something because they just dropped me off at like a friend couple's, like it was like an older couple, their house, and they didn't have any kids. I don't know, or at least like kids that like lived there. I don't know. But they're like, yeah, we'll go to the video store, back when video stores were a thing and like rent
Yeah.
whatever you want. So I'm just like, okay, I know that I won't get any pushback from Gary and Sharon were their names. I remember that. They were really cool. Um, and yeah, I was just like Friday the 13th, and they're just like, okay. And I think they might have even watched like the first one or two, uh, or
Mm.
the first one, because I wasn't, it was like maybe there a week.
Okay.
And they're like, well, that was something else. But then I just like, went on and watched the second one. But then after that, I kind of like, just I'm gonna continue doing my thing and rent all of
Sure.
them. And I got to part six. And I remember at the time, like when I watched part five, I didn't like it. And I didn't like that movie for a long time, and probably for like
Mm.
very shallow reasons that, is probably why most people don't like it because it is not Jason and it's a little silly.
Hmm.
But then there was part six, and I remember like just feeling kind of like I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. And it was just it tonally, it felt different. I knew that I was watching something that it the comfort that I had with like the first five movies was no longer there.
Mm.
And I knew that I was watching something different and I
Hmm.
don't know if I didn't know if I liked it or not at the time. And it wasn't until I guess more like within the last 5 years that I really started to, get into like, do my YouTube channel and start rewatching these movies and getting into them more, that I kind of realized like, no, I don't like this movie, and these are the reasons why,
Mm.
and just like really tonally and just like the the meta-ness of it all, it just felt very far removed from what I appreciated about the franchise. And yeah, I think that, when I started to do like, I had my ranking video or whatever on YouTube, and I had Jason Lives very low, and people were like, fuck you. You're
Yeah,
not a
yeah.
real fan of horror, this franchise. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm just like, whoa. Because I mean, you know me, I just assumed that like my opinion is the gospel truth and like everyone
You're the
Well,
god.
like,
You're the god.
yeah. I mean, not
No, I
for like
know.
any
I
like
know.
egotistical reasons, but it's just one of those things that like, oh well, I I didn't like this, so I don't think anyone else did.
Right, right, right.
Until you figure out that like, oh no, you're the outlier, you're the problem. So
That's my
that
eternal truth.
yeah. So yeah, long story short, that was my my long-term experience with Jason Lives.
Cool. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
had the Crystal Lake to Manhattan DVDs, or that I mentioned. I think they were, yeah, they were DVDs at the time.
Yeah.
Uh, and I remember I had only watched up until four before I kicked out in my teens. And then I tried again once I got the Crystal Lake to Manhattan that had all eight Paramount uh, um, uh, shit, I was gonna say Legacy, but no, what did
Hmm.
what were they
Canon.
just called? No,
Tamika
Canon.
said
Yes,
that
the
these are the
Canon
canon
films.
ones.
The
Yeah.
Canon films.
Yeah.
But I just called them the Paramount
Yeah.
films. Yeah, that run, I remember watching five. I don't remember disliking it, but I do remember going, "What the fuck? Like this is insane." And okay, what is six gonna be? And I remember watching six, and it just dipped. And
Mm.
I've never, five I've developed an absolute love for. And some of the others down the road, I've found things over the years as I watched them subsequently that I'm like, well, you know what? This isn't a great film, but I do like these things about, whatever. Except with this one, I'm telling you, Zach, I tried. I mean, in my initial viewing, I was bored. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
And I'm always bored when I watch it. And that's the thing is that whatever it is that really gets people to hook in and
Hmm.
latch on to this one doesn't exist for me because I always find that my mind is wandering. Whatever stage of relationship we have to our cellular phones, ever since I started watching these, it's getting harder and harder not to reach for it and just be on my phone or even. Well, okay. So I tried to watch it earlier this week or last week to just kind of get a head start. And it was nighttime. I had never watched it at night. And I'm like, maybe if I watch it at night, kind of a spooky atmosphere, something will happen. And I started to fall asleep. And I needed to work the next day. So I'm like, you know what? I'll catch up on this. I'll watch the whole thing fresh the day we record. I did. And I sat through the first hour and then I started to fall asleep and I didn't wake up until the climax of the film. So that's a good, what, chunk of 20 minutes? So I was like, so I rewound it. I watched the climax again as I was setting up today. And I feel like that's an ideal way for someone like me to watch this movie is to kind of watch it over my shoulder and kind of half watch it, to kind of like glance at the screen, get a grip on like what's going on, know that nothing really dynamic is going to shift anytime soon. So I'll just focus on this for like a good 45 seconds, to
Yeah.
90 seconds. And then I'll look back up and if I hear something or if I know, because I also know it pretty well at this point. I've watched it a lot. But there were, this is something that is a gift that comes with working on the cherry picker is like films that I have that kind of a response to. I have to, or I make myself sit with like a pen and a notebook and write down things and speculate. And if my mind does wander, it wanders not just because I'm bored, but it wanders kind of like postulating, like, why don't I like this? What
Yeah.
is it about the shift? And I have a lot that actually, I think,
Yeah.
a lot of evidence to procure.
It's no, I agree with that, and I agree. Like I found myself, becoming bored with that. But I appreciate you saying that, of
Mm,
just, like you're being there with your pen and pad because that's what I like to do. I don't like to just make a blanket statement and just be like, this is not a good movie.
yeah,
I would like to, I need to seek the truth. I need to find out knowledge and understand like why is this not necessarily bad, but why doesn't it work for me? Because,
right.
when I have that conversation with someone like, be that you or, anyone else who wants to talk about horror with me, I want to be prepared to articulate why rather than just being that person who's just like, yeah,
Yeah,
this is a bad movie and this is like it's because that's the worst.
yeah.
I don't want to have conversations with people like that. And if someone says this is a good movie, I like, it's I've something that I've found with the cherry picker is that it's harder to articulate the reasons why we think something is good because it's sort of like,
Right.
oh, look at that. And then there was that. Oh my God, I love that. But with the things that are bad, and I think like infamously probably with our like Halloween Resurrection episode, it was just like we had so much shit to say, and we like to the point where we were like enjoying ourselves,
That's true.
just talking shit.
That's true.
One thing that and I don't want to just like go into reason because I don't think this is a bad movie
Mhm.
by any stretch of the imagination. There are things that I want to talk about. You know, there are not many, but just like the things that I do like about it. But I will say that something that unconsciously, like as I was watching it, like a movie that I kept thinking of that not that they're necessarily like similar in a way. I think that it's more of like the fact that there are children in this movie, which
Yeah,
is like this is like a first and only, I think, for this franchise where there are, you know, they're at a camp and the kids are actually there.
right.
And it had me thinking about sleepaway camp. And it was just like a good memory. It was just like there's a movie that did like kids at camp correctly
Uh,
because like at this point, I mean, really only like the first Friday the 13th is kind of the only one that's like the counselors preparing
mhm.
for the kids to arrive because the second one is a counselor training camp and then
Yeah.
three, four, and five have nothing to do with summer camp.
Right.
But there was always like it was just sort of the idea that like no, Friday the 13th is like the killer comes when like before the kids arrive. Because that was the
Right.
thing. Like, you know, Pamela Voorhees was always about, you know, protecting the children and whatnot. So one of the things that I, you know, the complaint that I'll get into later is that like I feel like the kids shift the tone for me and it's just like you know, it makes it silly. It makes it like, and not in a good way. And I don't think that what the children are bringing is doing anything fun. But then I'm thinking of Sleepaway Camp, and I'm thinking of like these characters. Like, is her name Judy? Like the bitch?
Oh,
And
yeah.
I'm just thinking of like those like sneers that she would give off, and like the a real carpenter's dream. And I just like and comparing that to like. So what like the line that you said, like what did you want to be when you grew up?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like, oh God. Um, so
That's another.
yeah, I just wanted to say that like I was watching this and I was just I kept thinking about, you know, a movie that I would have preferred watching because I was like you, just kind of like drifting out of it and like
Mhm.
not being as engaged or entertained by it.
Because that's another thing is that like what if you're going to lean into comedy, you always run a risk because comedy is not always going to have mass appeal. Even these films themselves, I would argue, don't have mass appeal. Even though it's one of the most successful and known franchises, I still know a great many horror fans who watch these films, own them, and continue to watch them over the years, but don't like them. You know, because again, we're horror fans. That's what we do. We're always going to go back in and just go like, now why? Well, you know, or I saw that so long ago. I don't even. I just remember not liking it. I'd like to know why, and we'll go back with our little archaeologist, you know, paleontologist goggles or whatever, just to kind of like see. And then eventually something will come and we'll be like, oh, that's why. That's why I don't return to this anymore.
Mhm.
We even do that a few times on this pod. But with this one, I think that, again, when you go into humor, if it's not your style of humor or the humor just doesn't vibe with you, then there's a lot of where there should be a laugh, there's a lot of just kind of like dead air. And for me, there is a lot of dead air with this. That said, I did also, in anticipation of this pod, rewatch the segment on Crystal Lake Memories, the Blu-ray that I have. I even watched the bonus. I have the bonus DVD. Don't be
Mhm.
jealous of me. And I got to watch a lot of things that people said. I want to share something with you that I did not know about. That I
Okay.
saw the director, Tom McLaughlin. I didn't know. People are always comparing because of the meta thing. This to Scream. According, and you may believe this or not, but according to Tom McLaughlin in his edited section of the interview, at some point in the 90s, a script called Scary Movie was being shopped around looking for directors. He's one of the directors who this script fell into his lap. He read it and said, well, I've basically already made this movie because it's a self-referential horror with like comedic slips in there. I
Mhm.
don't need to make that movie again because he's not a horror director, he's a director.
Mhm.
And so he passed on it, looked at some other things for a few months, didn't find anything that really tugged at him, and went to his agent, he alleges, and said, whatever happened to that scary movie script? I might want to take another look at it. He says, oh, Wes Craven's already attached to that. And he's like, oh, well, there goes that. And then he saw Scream, and he said that's the one that got away. That's the one thing in his entire career that he's like, I should have said yes. And I'm like,
Yeah.
sometimes things happen the way they're supposed to.
Yeah, and no shade or anything, but no, I'm really glad that, I mean, Scream is what it is, and
Yeah.
it got to Wes Craven because I don't like just juxtaposing the two and just sort
Mm,
of like the meta self-referential aspect of Jason Lives versus what it was in Scream. I don't
mm,
think that, like he says that's the one that got away, but it's like, no, that's the one that Wes Craven made.
yeah,
Like he brought his vision to that of
of
what he
course.
knew or
Yeah,
what he thought like the meta angle would be. And I think he executed it very successfully. Whereas like
of
I
course.
don't know that it it really works for Jason Lives. And you've talked about this before, like, you always bring up the idea of camp
Yeah.
and where and it's not always the case, but like when it's intentional, when you're trying to
Mm,
uh infuse something that like almost like in a very ironic way,
hmm.
it's not as effective. Whereas like, true camp is like, it happens very unironically. It's just sort of like it's incidental of the material. And I feel that, like you look at the first five movies and all the things that like jump out at me that are like funny and humorous are those things like they're not meant to be, but they're just sort of like, for example, we always quote the line from the original when Marcy is looking into the mirror and she's doing her Katharine
When I
Hepburn.
looked in that mirror, I said, Lizzie, you'll always be plain.
Yeah. But that's something that
Yes.
like it's a little moment, or even like Ted in part two when he's like, "Welcome to God's country," and
Yes.
like that thing, and it's just like these are like moments that like stick with us. And there's nothing in Jason Lives like dialogue wise or anything that really stands out to me or feels like it kind of grew on me. It felt like it was like served to me. It's just like you have to take this for what it is and nothing
Hmm.
else. Whereas like the everything in like one through five, it's almost like it earned its way into
Yeah.
my my horror periphery of
Same.
just like the things that I know. And there's something because of that, it just felt like it's more special for that
Yeah,
reason.
that said, everything that Tom McLaughlin did from his first kind of like interactions with Paramount and with this project, I think is absolutely right. He, first off, he's the only director that I know of who went back to the source material, had a theater on Paramount Studios where they basically ran one through five for him on a film reel, and he just
Mhm.
sat there like festival style, just ran through all of them back to back because he's an avid purveyor of the festival circuit, so he's used to watching tons
Mhm.
of movies in a row. So he just sat there and binged them just to kind of like get a grasp of where it was. Because one thing that he did say, and this makes sense why he would have the inclination to go the direction he did. He's gone on record to say that he thought the franchise had basically run out of steam at this point after five.
Mhm.
And they wanted, and that was the feeling from Paramount. We need you to reinvigorate the franchise and do something that hasn't been done before. He watched it and asked, well, what hasn't been done before? And he's like, and everything, every choice he made stemmed from that. I think all of that is great. I think my issues come with the execution of it rather than the even just the conception of the piece, because he also, it was, this is pretty symptomatic of like where I thought he was speaking from and then where I found out he was speaking from, because I heard him in
Mhm.
one interview say he wrote the lion's share because he wrote the screenplay, and he says he wrote the screenplay in a cemetery just to kind of get that spooky vibe going and everything like that. And I'm like, oh, that's great. And I always imagined him like out in a hill in the middle of nowhere with the wind blowing and the full moon, like writing by candlelight or something. Who knows?
Mhm.
And then I saw he did a special that was excised from Crystal Lake Memories, but it's in the bonus disc. He visited the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. That's the cemetery he visited. Now, you've never been. I have. I drive by it every day, actually. It's
Okay.
just south of Santa Monica Boulevard in Hollywood. It is, they hold screenings there. It's the most vibe of a cemetery you have ever felt in your life. It
Yeah.
feels more kind of like, I don't know, the courtyard at a theme park than an actual, like cemetery. So I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, well, there you go. That's why it's not really all that creepy. I'm glad you did whatever you needed to do to try and get yourself in the mood, but you went to the Disneyland of of cemeteries, and that's probably where a lot of this tonal, for me, dissonance like comes
Yeah.
from. But it also, I felt like I always forgot. Like I remember, I think everybody remembers how this movie opens, which is adult Tommy, new Tommy, driving with Horshack from Welcome Back, Kotter, to go find Jason. But the first shot of the movie is when I was taking my notes, I noticed like the first shot is roadkill, and there's a dog picking at it, and the car is veering around the corner. And swerving, and the dog has to get out of the way of the road in order for the movie to happen, basically. And I thought, oh my God, what a wonderful micro, you know me, I'm all about the microcosm, but what a wonderful kind of like symbolic image for what this movie is. Because for me, from about the seeds were always planted there, I think, from probably two on, for it to kind of get grosser. Like two from like the bloody, bruised thumbnail of Jason as he's
Mm.
closing in on his kill, to like the blood-soaked sweater that like Ginny's putting on, and then in three, God, that whole movie's gross. The muddy, swampy, just swamp
Man-made
soaked,
lake.
yeah,
Yeah.
man-made lake that Pamela Voorhees's corpse has to rise out of with like little like snakes like
Which
sticking out of
doesn't
her
make
nose.
any sense because, like, wasn't she was decapitated? I mean, I get that
Right.
it was a nightmare, but still, it's just like I have some mythology
Sure.
discrepancies with part three, but
Right. But
yeah.
even in four, I'd say like maybe Axel's the grossest thing about four. But anyway, and then in five, it's definitely gross with Ethel spitting and sweating in her stew and everything. And the damn enchiladas and everything. Like it
Yeah.
really kind of like became like the underbelly. Like it went beyond the woods and became like, just like this rustic outback feeling, like civilization cut off, kind of
Yeah.
like feel. And I feel like this one, that's kind of like what the roadkill is for me, this dog feasting on roadkill, and this car with a brand new Tommy and Arnold Horshack from the sitcom Welcome Back, Kotter is turning the corner going, beep, beep, get out of our way, roadkill. The movie's got to happen, because I don't really think of this movie as gross either. So for me, I'm just kind of like,
Well,
that's another reason why it feels a little, clean, a little
it's,
sitcom-y.
I mean, it is a lot more sanitized. I mean, this is I think the only Friday the 13th movie to date that has no nudity in it. And I mean, that might have come down to just like the actress and, her contract with
They
that, which,
tried.
yeah. But yeah, there's something about it. It feels safer.
Yeah.
I do want to like just reel it back and talk about some of the things you were saying before, because I think
Yeah.
that what I appreciate about this is that the movie even exists, that
Yeah.
we have this, because you know how I think about these things, especially with franchises. It's good to have a variety of things,
Mm-hmm.
and it's good to, just like, even though it's not, it might not necessarily be your cup of tea or mine,
Mm-hmm.
it adds perspective. And I agree with Tom McLaughlin in a way that it's just like the franchise was running out of steam, in a sense that it was just
Yeah.
doing the same thing over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Where was it going to go? I mean, it was kind of like it was just going to end up ending. And I mean, like, you could look at the franchise now, and it's just like, where has it been? Like, they're trying to jumpstart it again, but it's it's amazing that like this even has a part six. And I don't look at a franchise and just like, expect like, obviously, we've had Scream 6 and, like all these movies. And it's just like, you get to a point and it's going to start to lose its luster. And I mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, s- I love Saw 6, by the way. I think it's my favorite
Oh,
one, actually.
one of the
But
best sixes. Yeah.
yeah, but there's an expectation which I often forget, that I need to remind myself of. It's just like, look, we're six movies in. You don't need to have the moon and the stars. You've already got
Mm,
that. It's just like, be appreciative of what you have and maybe appreciate the fact that there is some variety. And I think that, and I was talking to Eric about this, and he brought up this analogy, which I guess was similar to the idea of Halloween 4, that Halloween 4 and Jason Lives are kind of like the studio's responses to the movies in the franchise that kind of like they experimented. They tried to do
mhm,
something different, which did not include the heavy. So in Halloween's case, Season of the Witch, and
mhm.
with Friday the 13th, Roy Burns.
Yeah.
And it's like audiences didn't like it. So they sort of like went back to the basics
Yeah.
and were just like, okay, we're going to just be as vanilla as possible and safe as possible. And that in a way, like it's quite telling that,
Mhm,
audiences are just like they just want something that is familiar and something that is easy. And I think that in that regard, Jason Lives gives that to us.
mhm,
Now, I think that like I love Halloween 4. I think it's like of the seven that I love, like first seven, it's probably my least favorite, which again is probably a hot take for a lot of people because
right.
Halloween 4 is usually listed as one of the most popular sequels.
Mhm,
Um, but with this one, with Jason Lives, it's it's almost like I look at the Friday the 13th franchise,
mhm,
and I don't think that it's a franchise that needs variety. I
mhm,
think that it works best when it just is what it is and not trying to put on any pretenses.
mhm,
Nightmare on Elm Street, it's the opposite. Like I love that like every movie is like feels different from the last. Like it's exploring new ideas, it's doing things, and I feel like the concept of it allows it. Same with Halloween. Like you just like every movie in that franchise has so much variety in it, for better or
mhm,
worse. With Friday the 13th, I just feel like this is, I mean, it's not one of my favorite franchises. Like I love it for what
mhm.
it is, but I know that there's nothing inherently deep or nuanced about it. Besides like little moments here and there that I can pluck out that I really enjoy. But it's that's what it is. It's just sort of like delightful trash to me. And because of that, I don't need like a Jason Lives. I don't need like something to just be like ironic and meta and like look at what I can do. I just want like I would continue watching these movies if it was just the same template, if they literally just like changed out the characters, but everyone was the same, like the same ideas, like Friday the 13th part one and part two, and just kept doing that. And it was almost like Survivor, where, if they kept the similar structure and it's just like a new cast every time, and Jason is Jeff Probst, and he's there snuffing out people's torches. Like I will watch that till the end of time, even if it's not get as good anymore. I don't, and because I hate Survivor when they start to futz with the formula, but that's what Friday the 13th is to me. And I would be happy with, even if it was running out of steam, give me that because that's all I need from this franchise.
I agree with you. Like, in again, I'll say the same thing you said, but did differently. Because I do agree to you to an absolute point. But I think you make a great point because this is the thing. Five was a detour, and there were a lot of things that they shifted from what had come before in five. And that number one, there was no Jason, but also just the fact that we had our first character carryover where the character is on screen basically from beginning to end,
Yeah.
and doesn't just get killed off in the first reel. They basically kind of arguably killed off Corey Feldman as Tommy Jarvis, and
Mhm.
but then reinvigorated it as John Shepard. But this is the thing: the connective tissue between John Shepard and Corey Feldman, I feel, is so much easier to just get on board with for me because there was something about the way John Shepard, and we talked about this in that pod, but just the way he carried that trauma, our golden word. If you
Mhm.
got your
The
bingo card,
horror. He
the
carried the
horror.
horror. Yeah.
But we mentioned trauma and horror, so
Yeah.
on your bingo card, kids. But anyway, but the way he carried it with him, and the fact that I had no problem believing that was the kid with the masks from, the final chapter.
Yeah.
And then with this one, this Tommy, it's not an indictment of Tom Matthews' performance, but I think like from just the way he's written to the way he was directed, I just feel he's the Tommy I connect with the least and the one that I have the hardest time connecting with that boy from the final chapter. Because even as he has a moment where he's stabbing that metal rod into the casket,
Yeah.
and Horshack even reacts as though, like, oh shit, some real bad shit's going down. Should I even be here for this? And I'm watching it and I'm like, but I'm not experiencing anything even remotely close to an emotional catharsis, not even on a camp level. It just felt rather dry to me. And the fact that there was nothing resonating with me that early on when the character should be doing something that feels like old wounds bleeding out and and just all the anger from like your mother being killed and who knows where your sister is now. Like we don't even mention the sister. So all of that, it's like they
No, it meant,
not
but it does mention your friends were all killed. And it's just like,
yeah.
no. There's a few things that are just like fallacies that are mentioned in this movie, but that was one of them
Yeah,
that stuck out to me.
and then the immediate thing that he himself, Tommy, detours from this like supposedly emotional, like stabbing of the Jason corpse and everything like that, and something that's supposed to be like childhood scars,
Yeah.
manifesting. He just kind of takes the mask, looks at Jason, and goes, "Fuck you, Jason," and I'm like, "Oh man, dude, this is not what I signed on for."
Yeah.
Because also in terms of the detour again, like some things that carried over from 5 to 6, and nobody ever talks about this, were the vignettes. But this is the thing. Because this is the thing. I'm all for a detour, but there are still some things you have to, for me, infuse like a little life, a little backstory, a little dimension, or capitalize on the lack of dimension and just really just play to the back of the house. And I don't feel like I really get either of those from 6. Whereas in 5, I get both. I get a Tommy that I can empathize with and get on board with and follow through to the end. And then I also get the moments with "It's showtime" or "Hey baby, ooh baby," or like any number of
Yeah.
all of the "Come on, baby, motherfucker, start the car, motherfucker." Like all of that shit is so memorable to me, and like you said,
Yeah.
unintentional camp that just resonates with me and that just continually interests me and that only grows with me as I get older. Whereas the characters and the vignettes in this, I don't really have anything to hook into with the
Yeah.
paintballers. I don't have anything to hook into with the people sitting underneath the moonlight and the guy going, "Yeah, I just feel bad, I'm just really hurt that you didn't, that you thought I just brought you out here to take advantage of you," or whatever the fuck he says. And she's like, "Let's do it." And I'm like, I can't,
Yeah.
what am I watching?
Okay, there's so much to address
Yes,
here.
there is. Sorry.
Well, firstly, I just finish off like just to say something nice about the movie. I think that this movie had a much higher budget than the first five,
Oh yeah.
and I think that that was quite evident. I think that the
Hmm.
production quality, I mean, and that's not to say like I think that the directors of the previous five, especially Steve Miner,
Hmm.
in part two, like I think that the direction of that is wonderful. But
Yeah.
what we're seeing here is just like it's just there's so much detail and there's so much attention to detail
Yeah.
that Tom McLaughlin puts into the movie. The problem is I don't always think that the detail is the right direction to go in, and I'll
Right.
get to some of that later.
Sure.
But it just like the movie looks really good, and I think that I wouldn't want to take that away from
Right.
Jason Liz because I like that about it. In terms of Tommy. Actually, Adrian Phillips is saying part 6 is Tommy is unbelievable. He seems cool in this movie. So witnessing a massacre at Pinewood reformed this kid. So I mean, based on the three Tommies, the Tom Matthews rendition is probably my least favorite.
Right.
This is not a knock against Tom Matthews at all.
No,
I
I
think
love
that
him.
I think that a lot of it comes down to the script and the storytelling and like all
Hmm.
these things these omissions that we're talking about in the film because I feel that it's just he's not really Tommy Jarvis. He's just sort of like an all-purpose avatar um
Mm.
for, what a main character could be. Like he's just, and this is the thing, it's just because everyone will say like Tom Matthews is their favorite, and I've always joked, well, it's because he's tall. Um
It's because his
he's tall,
ass looks
he's
really good in those jeans.
yeah, he's tall and handsome. And that's, I mean, like that, I mean, he should not be begrudged for that
No, not at
at
all.
all.
I
I
love
think
him.
yeah, absolutely. But it feels like a disconnect. I
Yeah.
don't think that he really is, just in terms of like the character of just like Tommy, who he
Hmm.
is really doing anything. And the main problem, besides like the meta stuff
Hmm.
that I have with this movie, is like it all lands on Tommy,
Hmm.
mostly, and it's because of, so I guess like the conceit of like the character this time around is like, we hear it when we first see him and he's driving and he's saying, Jason belongs in hell, and I'm gonna see to it that he gets there.
Right.
And it's this misbelief that Tommy has throughout the entire movie, or it's at least the misbelief that he started the movie with, which
Mm.
is never really addressed or evolves beyond what he says at the beginning, because we as an audience, I mean, if we're following the franchise, we know that
Hmm.
Jason is in hell. Jason is
Yeah.
dead. He is already in hell. You don't need to be doing any of this. Like,
No.
it seems like everything that Tommy is going through is psychological, which again, we don't really see in this movie, but if we're going by part five,
Yeah.
then we can understand, okay, so he's haunted by the horror of
Yeah.
Tommy, and it's these visions. So I mean, if the idea is that Tommy is going to destroy the body because he wants to get rid of these visions of Jason, like that is one thing, and I can get behind that. I can understand that.
Hmm.
But it's not presented here, and it's not really like the movie is very on the nose about all of this. So it's just sort of,
Hmm.
if you were coming to a Friday the 13th movie for the first time and you just started with six and you had no previous knowledge, like if you showed your mother or your grandma like a Friday the 13th movie, it's like, here's my favorite, Jason Lives, start it. They would watch that and then just, by the very nature of like what is being said, oh, so Jason is like, he needs to go to hell. He's somehow like he's in this like limbo between worlds and he needs to go there. And the
Yeah.
problem with that is like that's not true. It's Tommy's misbelief. And the thing is that his misbelief ends up creating way more chaos. Like he is the inciting incident of the
Hmm.
movie,
Hmm.
because he resurrects Jason. That is
Yeah.
completely on him, and it is
Yeah.
something that he never acknowledges.
No.
There are no consequences, no reprimand. Nobody else in the movie calls him out for it. He doesn't. It's not even something that he internalizes or thinks about. It just happens, and then the
Hmm.
movie continues, and it pisses me the fuck off because it makes him a nothing character, and he's literally just there. It could have been anyone. It didn't have to be Tommy Jarvis.
Also, can I just comment that there's something additionally that pisses me off about that is that there's a great opportunity for retribution for this character that is not taken because, yes, he does kind of spend half the movie screaming about Jason Voorhees while everyone is standing there in disbelief and even, like incarcerating him, thinking he's the one who's perpetrating all of this. Which there's a great movie to be made about that because aren't you the kid from, that loony bin? Like, it's not like we have to kind of like put a question mark over people's heads again about like, well, is he or isn't he? But I don't know, there's something about the struggle to be believed that can be not monotonous if you push it a little bit more as the centerpiece of your movie, and that can actually be about, well, I know I'm going to like the people who believe him first because intuitively there's something that they respond to or something like that. I feel like I'm talking almost very Clear Rivers Final Destination with Devon
Yeah,
Sawa kind of thing because we immediately
yeah.
know to get on board with her because she's listening. She's attuned to like what's happening on the plane and she's like, well, if he's flipping out, I don't feel safe here and I'm going to listen to that. So I'm going to get off the plane too. I don't know why, and I feel like again, You could make an argument that that's what they do with their female protagonist in this movie, but I don't feel like it's motivated by anything other than just like
Hormones, yeah.
she acknowledges that he's as hot as we all acknowledge, like, and she's
Mhm.
just kind of attracted to him. She also really has no problem antagonizing her father. In fact, she seems to really get off on it. And then the argument I've heard for Megan is that she's like, some people use the word strong, like strong female character or whatever to describe her. If that's the way you see her, more power to you. I personally don't see it that way because I don't equate, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like an irreverence or a lack of respect necessarily with strength. I feel like she's actually kind of dumb. Like if we were to go by the rules, again, I know it's a detour, but if we were going to go by the rules of like everything that had come up until this point, um, she's shares a lot more traits with a lot of Jason's female victims than she does with any of his heroines, like his foes, the ones
Yeah.
who have been able to at least take him down temporarily until the next movie comes
Yeah.
around. And the thing that really pisses me off is she spends probably about three-quarters of the movie being that person who's like, driving too fast and pushing Tom Matthews' head down in between her legs, and and all of that.
Yeah.
Then in the last quarter of the movie, all of a sudden she's just kind of relegated to this traditional female character going, "No, you can't, Tommy!" Like she's completely, all of her agency is gone, and it's just kind of
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, so when the shit hits the fan, you're of no help at all. You even
Yeah.
need a man to save you, and that's not what I turn to these movies for.
It's yeah, the turning point for her is when she finds out that Court, of all people, has been killed.
Right.
Um, like not Court, not the fan favorite. What was the one in House of Wax where the what's his face from Scary Movie?
What's this freaking scary movie? Oh, you're asking me to remember things. I can't remember things.
Bobby. But he was in
Oh,
House of
Bobby,
Wax.
yes. I don't
But
remember his name, but yeah, that
it's
actor. Yeah.
not, is it Dalton? Someone help me out here. Because he's the one that they get the head and they accident like he's already been
That's
decapitated.
right.
They don't know,
That's right.
but like both her and Alicia Cuthbert and Chad Michael Murray are like, ah. But
Right.
they've just seen Paris Hilton and her boyfriend, and they're dead. They're just like they're dead. And then even after that, she sees Wade, the Jared Padalecki character. She's like, oh no, Wade. But like they made this, there was this whole to do about that. Anyway, I'm rambling, but yes, Dalton. Everyone's confirming, but
Yes. Played by
yeah,
John Abrams. Love
John
him.
Abrams. Thank you, John Abrams from Scary
Yeah.
Movie. But that was like the thing. It's just like suddenly she has this turning point based on a character that we have seen no real connection with in terms of like their anything that they've dealt with. Like he's sort of like presented as like just this
Oh my God.
this scumbag,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
They don't really give a shit about him. But anyway, yeah, there's a lot to talk about with her. I still wanted there was more to say about Tommy though.
Go for it.
Because you're even talking about like there's an opportunity to sort of like infuse this like emotionality into things of just like,
Hmm.
what's happening with him. And I feel like the movie, when it comes to especially this like this back and forth between him and the sheriff, it
Hmm.
gets old really fast for me
It
because
does.
it never progresses beyond
No.
what it initially is. And I don't
No.
like either of them. I think that they're both extremely irresponsible and stupid. And it starts with Tommy when he comes like running into the police station and
Yeah.
he's just like, "Oh my God, like Jason's like we got to do something." And this guy is like snoozing or whatever. He jumps up, aims his gun at him, and he starts like making these threats, whatever. Let's put ourselves in Tommy's shoes at this point. Like even like beyond the hysteria of that. You've got a gun pointed at your head. You're gonna be like, okay, I need to calm down. I need to rationally explain to the man with the gun at my head what is happening and why. And it's just like it's like he has no um like comprehension skills or just like to understand like what to do. And if that was a fact of like because he's grown up in these situations and because of the trauma that happened to him, that's one thing. But it's just like he's just sort of presented as just being really stupid.
Mhm.
And they're like, like calm yourself down, yada yada yada. The deputy comes in, and Tommy uses that as an opportunity to like, okay, I'm gonna run for the gun cabinet and start to grab this gun because and you're like, no, you gotta listen to me. You gotta believe me. And
Oh
it's
my
just like,
God.
Tommy, you are killing me right now because you are
Yeah.
not being a smart character. And that's the thing. It's just, people in horror movies don't have to be smart, but they shouldn't at least not be stupid.
Mm,
And that is everything that Tommy is giving in this movie. And of course, that gets him thrown into the jail cell.
hmm.
And that would be one thing, because the next day, they're taking him out of town, and then it happens again. They're like, you just drive straight ahead, and he decides, no, I'm gonna go to the cemetery, and then they have to
Hmm.
follow him. And what does he say? Like freaking A, hit the cherry with the
Yeah, yeah,
siren.
yeah,
What is he
yeah, yeah.
like?
Something like I don't, something with the cherries on top, and yeah, hey,
Yeah,
cherry on top. But
yeah.
yeah, and then because then it says like later on, there's a lot of old like kind of 1930s, 40s like quippy banter among
Yeah.
these characters. Like there's, I mean, of course, there's the infamous line,
Well, hold on,
where,
hold on, hold on, hold
sorry,
on.
go on.
Let
Okay.
me so he does that. They chase him down again. So this is now a second time he's
Yes.
seen that, like, okay, I can't have any excitable outbursts. This is not working,
Hmm.
especially with this sheriff. I can't. This is not the way to get through to him. But anyway, they take him out of town finally, and they're just like, leave. Don't ever come back here again. So what does he do? The first thing he does is comes back into town, and then he calls the sheriff's station. Now,
Yeah.
fortunately for him, Megan is there, and she picks up the phone, but he's just calling like, all right, so it's almost like he's like stalker boyfriend kind of personality where it's just like he's really trying to like go on a date with this sheriff, and he's like trying to convince him like again and again, and it's just like, no, 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 no. Like it's like, you want to date me. You want to date me. But like he just keeps doing the same thing over and over again, and the sheriff is like, dude, I'm not believing you. It's not
Yeah,
happening.
yeah, yeah.
So like for him to like go back into town and then to call and be like, hey, because what was that conversation going to be anyway? Like I know we got off on a to a rocky start, but here I have a plan and this is what we're gonna do. Like thinking that this guy is going to hear him out again. So fortunately for him, Megan was there to pick up the phone. And now let's talk about her, because like her
Okay.
response, she's just like, hey, oh, it's you.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
And she's just like, yeah, I remember me. Like I was this person. And there's a moment where she sort of like has to coach him through it, because she's just like, look, you can't, my dad's not going to believe you. In fact, he's
Yeah.
out there right now looking for
Hmm.
you to haul you in again.
Yeah.
So you need to drop this. But she's not really taking things seriously. She's just like, look, you stick with me, kid, and I'll make this happen for you. But again, these things you're talking about with her, she's not really on board in like the same way like a Clear Rivers is with Alex and Final Destination,
Yeah.
of just like, we're
Yeah.
gonna solve this. She's just like, oh, I'm getting a date out of this
Yeah.
with my father's left the guy the, the guy who's actually obsessed with my father right now, not me.
My
And
dad's stalker.
yeah, and and yeah, so it's like this whole thing and her driving around,
Oh
which,
yeah.
and that goes nowhere. That's
No.
just filler. It's just like she's not really, like, she's kind of aimless. It's just going towards nothing, just for this idea that I'm going to go on this date. And it's not until she gets the news that, oh, my coworker is dead or whatever.
Sure.
And here's because I know I've taken up a lot of airtime here. So I'll hand it over to you, and maybe people in the chat as well. Well, definitely people in the chat as well.
Oh, nice.
But there, that's the thing. Like the sheriff's whole thing is like, because he's kind of just as stubborn as Tommy, and he's of the belief Tommy is doing this and nobody else. There can be no other option. It must be Tommy. So you have these two forces that are just completely stuck in their ways of just like going over the same thing. It must be this. It must be this. And they're all there in the sheriff's station, and he is presenting this idea that Tommy murdered Court and the girl in the RV.
Sure.
And this chronologically in the screen time happened way before Megan and Tommy even like I think it was before the phone call even happened.
Hmm.
And she says, well, what time did this happen? Because he's like, I was with her or whatever, and she confirms it, or she's the one that says like, no, he was with me at that time,
From 8:30 to 9, yeah.
which is a lie. Like, how could they know it? Like, that was a lie, and that would have been an opportunity to do something interesting if she had actually, because she believed him, told a lie to
Mm.
to get him like out of hot water or whatever. But it wasn't. It was just taken as fact.
Yeah.
And it was just like so there's opportunities and to develop these characters and give them some sort of emotionality or just like or nuance beyond what it is. And it's like it's not taken at every turn.
And because this is the thing, it's come up many times in the pods prior to this one where we're discussing Friday the 13th movies. We never are of the mind that these movies are so poignant and that the characters are just overflowing with, like this dimension and everything like that. No, we understand that like they're largely archetypes or stereotypes, but that there is enough kind of like of a personal spin on them, whether it comes from the script, a moment, that they're given, or an improvised moment from the actor, or
Mhm.
something that they were directed to do, or some kind of wonderful combination of all of that or any of that, that makes it possible for you and I to sit here for like 3 hours. Ooh, somebody's ringing my bell. So it makes it possible for us to sit here for like 3 hours and just pick apart what we suppose their backstories could be.
Yeah.
Some of the campiest, most high octane characters you've ever seen. But there's still, like something to like scratch. And I feel like most of when I'm scratching, I'm just kind of like, I do agree with you because on the heels of what you just said, I feel like there are numerous on-screen examples of things that could have developed. And one of them in particular for me, where I'm just kind of like, that's the most interesting thing I've seen transpire between Megan and Tommy for the duration of the film. It's when they're driving. It's after she breaks him out of the cell and they have that bloodless kiss, and I bet by bloodless I mean no heat, where they're just pressing their faces together, and it's supposed to be like, oh my gosh, I'm really into this. Yet they're still just kind of mouthing each other, just going on each other's faces. It's not
Yeah.
sexy. Anyway, and they're both very attractive young people. It should be kind of like, hey, go get it, girl. But I'm like,
Hmm.
I don't want that. Anyway,
Yeah.
she breaks him out. They get in the car again, and this time he's driving. She gets out of the driver's seat, lets him take over, and I'm just kind of like, okay,
All
whatever.
right,
But
hot lips.
yeah, right. But she asks him like, where are we going? And he says, and she said, and he tells her, and she's like, oh, okay, to for Lake Forest Green. And he's like, can't Crystal Lake, where his nightmare began. And he says it all like broody and like with
Mm,
again, the trauma kind of comes in a little bit. And there's this
yeah.
one moment where she kind of does a double take and looks at him like, "Are you all right?" Like I don't. You might
Yeah.
be. All this time I've been believing you, but now, and I'm like, see, there's something there. There's something to that about like being so, like, kind of like with Tommy being so like dead set on, visiting Jason that he fucks everything up. What if there was a parallel created in Megan where she was so kind of like dead set in being on the side of this guy, even if we allow everything that transpired beforehand to happen, and she just really wanted to piss off her dad, and she thinks he's kind of hot, and she's having a great time, and she's just bored in this one horse town or whatever. And now she starts to realize there might be some real consequences to this, but it never goes anywhere. They're still like that from the rest of the movie on. They're just on the same team
Yeah.
fighting, and she just turns into that girl screaming, "No, Tommy!" and crying
Yeah.
over him when she thinks he's been killed. A guy she's known for, what is it, like 2 nights now?
Well,
And
they're arguing like because she does kind of turn against him at the end, but it's also superficial. Like she's like, "You're gonna be sorry." I
yeah.
hope not.
Oh, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Another thing, another character that I'm just kind of like,
Could, before
yeah.
we
Oh, do you
go
want to
on
read? You want to
characters,
read? Yes,
yeah, let's just
please.
see what some of the comments are. So Bill and Caitlin love this movie. I know you guys don't. Can't wait to watch all this tomorrow during my commute. Love you all. Well, thank you.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you.
So yeah, you can listen to this while you're driving around or taking the train.
Yeah.
Adrian, it's just a script full of segments of first/second drafts.
Oh, I
I
like that.
mean, I agree in terms of like character. I think that in terms of like the action and the story, like they're probably, Tom McLaughlin was probably like pretty dead set. This is what it's going to be. But I don't know what else he's done.
Yeah.
Shame on me. But it doesn't seem like it's just based on this that like character is really something that's like exists at the forefront
Hmm.
for him. Brianna, Tommy was just all emotion, didn't think a single thing through. Yeah, definitely. Adrian, the sheriff needed to give Tommy the JLC and H2O speech. Wander. What do you think you could do? Just wander around town?
As Chucky.
That, I don't ask you for very much. Just give me this one fucking day. Uh,
I love when
Amethyst.
Chucky is women. Anyway, go on.
Chucky. Well, my favorite is Chucky is Linda from
Yeah,
Halloween.
that should
Don't
be a Go ahead.
don't touch the blouse, idiot. It's expensive.
Hey, it's totally dark. I can't do it as well as you, but
Well, you can do every other voice, so I think that, you gotta give me something.
that's high praise.
Oh,
Thank
you can do this one. Amethyst, he's obsessed with me and he's obsessed with my farther, as Jennifer Jolie would say.
And with my farther,
Farther.
he-
What's it-
he, he's obsessed with me, and he's obsessed with my farther.
what is she? She says
Daughter.
Darter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're obsessed with her.
Dar-
You're obsessed with her daughter.
Darter. Piper. No. Roman. It's such a snotty name.
Bootism. Anyway, let's
Yeah.
keep going.
Yeah.
We'll never stop.
Oh, you know what is a snotty name? The I guess like the couple who runs the camp who are killed
Yeah.
at the beginning because what is it? It's like Darren and Lizbeth. And
Yes.
no offense to anyone whose name is Lizbeth, but like every time that the girl says like, but we have to wait by the phones because Darren and Lizbeth might call. And I'm always thinking like, do you maybe want to put an E in there? Like,
Oh.
it
Reminding
just-
me, there's a scene. I mean, this is so not on topic, but it's
Yeah.
Lisbeth. There's a scene in Terms of Endearment where Deborah Winger's meeting all the highfalutin friends of her best friend. And she's, I can't even remember her name right now, but she's just introducing her to all these, like, ladies who don't work because their husbands make so much money. And Deborah Winger's like blue collar. She meets one woman and she introduces herself as Lisbeth. And she's like, hello, Elizabeth. She's like, no, Lisbeth. And she's like, what did I say? She said, Elizabeth. Just, and what is it again? She's like, Lisbeth. And she said, Lisbeth? And she just kind of goes, never mind. And everyone at the table laughs, and Deborah Winger's just really, she's not even embarrassed. She's just trying to follow. She doesn't speak this language. And
Yeah.
you're Deborah Winger. That's who you are.
Okay, cool. Lisbeth. Lisbeth.
What the fuck? Who named you? You want to put an E in there, maybe?
Yeah.
But, say it as Chucky.
She says it so many times, just like, but we gotta wait for Darren and Lisbeth. Where's Lisbeth? And it's
Can I tell you
Anyway,
something?
yes,
Oh, wait.
please.
Just while Lisbeth, while she's on the table.
Yeah.
Her and Darren, because it's Elizabeth is played by Nancy McLaughlin, who's the director's wife.
Okay.
And she's also the character of Nancy. People always think that it's a reference to Nightmare on Elm Street because she had a nightmare, but it's actually a reference to his wife because he wanted this little girl. He always wanted to remember she's kind of like the shining light of like truth and
Yeah.
the one we root for and everything. And I do love the Nancy in this. I don't know anything about her, but I like her when she's on screen. No, it was real, just like on TV. She's so sweet. But anyway, so his wife playing Lisbeth and Tony Goldwyn playing Darren. This time when I was watching the movie, I was kind of like, you know what? I wish Tom McLaughlin would have just pulled a Rob Zombie and just cast his wife as the lead in the movie because they are so much more entertaining to me than everybody else because she's smart. The second she sees a creep in a mask in the middle of the road, she knows to go into reverse. And she's doing the best she can to try and protect herself. I think she does a really decent job with what she's, doing in the movie. And Tony Goldwyn is Tony Goldwyn. He's wonderful. And I don't know, just something about the two of them. It was so much easier to gravitate toward them and their storyline. And it lasts one scene. But I just kept thinking, like, this should have been where the movie was. Just like two nice people go into the camp. Maybe what, I don't want either of them to get killed, but maybe they see a killing. Like Jason's killing someone in front of them, maybe Tommy. And then they have to go to the camp, try to convince all their counselors, and then, because that's another thing, I think Megan would have made a much better, like, background character. I might have been more on board with her if she had been, like, kind of like the bitchy background character than, like, the female lead of the movie. And on paper, I get it. I understand, like, because for all intents and purposes, if we were playing by the rules, the character of, I don't even remember her name, I wrote that, Paula. The girl who helps
Lisbeth's cousin.
Lisbeth's cousin. Or sister. She said sister. Lisbeth's sister, yeah.
Okay.
So Paula, and she's there with Sissy in court and everything. She's obviously kind of like the one who traditionally would be assigned the role of final girl if we were playing by the rules. So I appreciate it on paper, giving it to Megan, the girl who's openly mocking the Camp Blood legend, But again, it just, in the execution, it just didn't play with me. You wanted to read something?
No, I agree that those two characters actually did stand out to me, and I wish that they had been in more of it. But we'll talk about some of the side characters later. Tamika says, unfortunately, Tom Matthews wasn't given anything to sink his teeth into as adult Tommy Jarvis. Corey Feldman was a better Tommy, far and away.
I love him as that,
Adrian says, how much better did this sheriff protect his town over the sheriff in FVJ, Zack? I mean, we don't even remember the sheriff. I mean, wasn't he cherry picker contender? I think but he was such a non-character.
He was a non-character.
I think that there's redeeming qualities about this sheriff, for sure. But it's just like, he's still an idiot. I mean, it's just like he's
obviously, like, he's trying so hard to, like, have a stake in the decisions of his daughter, but I always got the impression she's just going to leave and just do what she wants anyway, so he has no control over her as a father. And also, so all they do is argue, and it's kind of like in the name of nothing, because she doesn't really listen to much he says. I think there's maybe one or two times in the movie he tells her to do something and she might take it seriously until she changes her mind. And I'm just like, well, that was pointless.
C. Edwards, I just stayed at my friend's house out in the country by a river for my birthday. We watched this film. It was very much like a Friday setting outside. Lovely.
Oh, that's fun. Okay. I need to watch this with people maybe, because I do know people who like it. Maybe if I watched it with people who like it, it would play differently. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. So this is another thing that I noticed, a detail, if you will, because I talked about how, like, Tom McLaughlin, like, infuses a lot of details into the movie.
Sure.
But it was something that almost, like, it worked against this being a Friday the 13th movie for me, because it was just like, it was one of those things that, again, like, I'm not getting, like, we're so far removed from the setting of the first two Friday the 13th that feel like summer. It's when Jason comes into the girl's cabin, like, he starts stalking in, because we just see his feet. He opens the door, and, like, all these leaves, like dead leaves, just sort of blow in. And I'm thinking, like, this isn't Halloween. Like, I'm like John Carpenter with all his fake leaves and in the original Halloween that they had to pick up and scatter. And it's just like, what is going on here? Like, we're supposed to be summertime. This doesn't feel like summer.
Right.
As it is. But you're like, just like little details like that, like, sure, add texture, absolutely, but it's like, it's not the right texture.
I also, I mean, he built into the script, like, they make allusions to someone being in Carpenter. So, like, he's making a reference to John Carpenter. There's Cunningham Road at one point for Sean S. Cunningham. And then later on, Tommy's calling, I think it's Megan, from Karloff General Merch or something like that. He doesn't even know the name of the store. So, like, there's a lot of Frankenstein. Well, not a lot, but there's enough, like, in this. And it's also, I guess, an allusion to the rejuvenation of Jason, the fact that he's brought back with lightning, the way Frankenstein was reanimated and everything. Like, okay, I see what you're doing. And again, on paper, I can respect it. But also, I mean, we've said this many times on the pod, that when you're making that many allusions and that many winks to the audience, you can kind of lose the thread of your own piece. And also considering the fact that it's a thread that's just kind of like trying to connect like all of these tiny little episodic moments between characters that I personally don't really care that much about outside of Tony Goldwyn and the director's wife.
Mhm.
But I mean, I can see the effort. Like you mentioned, I remember the moment after the kill for Lisbeth when
Mhm.
she's laying in the mud. That was really her, like laying on her back in the mud with a pole like right next to her head, and they
Mhm.
gave her some kind of respirator or something that's supposed to like help you breathe underwater. Problem is, it didn't work with mud.
Mhm.
So she started swallowing mud.
Yeah.
So, nothing but respect for that woman. All the applause in the world. She seems like a dear person. That's nothing. Everybody who's been interviewed for this movie seems like an absolutely awesome person. I'm sure it was a great set to work on, except for one person who they all didn't like,
Oh.
who I wrote down his name. It was Don Bairns, the production manager. He was apparently
Okay.
pinching pennies the entire time. Like Tom McLaughlin would tell him, "I need this on this date when we shoot this," and he'd be like, "All right, you got it." The day, imagine this as a director, Zach. The day comes, he shows up to set or on location. The thing is not there, and he's like, "Where's that thing I told you I needed?" And he's just kind of like, "Oh, I didn't order it because it's just so expensive." And he's like, "So now I have to try and figure out how to
Yeah.
make my scene work with this absence of
Yeah.
something I was expecting that was on the page that I told you I needed. So you're not doing your job to try and save money." And also
Yeah.
apparently this man, Don Barron Scott, and he's been interviewed about this too. He's like, "Yeah, I was the villain on set." He said there was one instance, I don't know if you noticed, when the RV tumbles,
Yeah.
there's something on top of it that hits the ground. It was a swamp cooler, which is like an outdated air conditioner. And it cost $5,000. They were using it for one of their, I guess, one of their background, kind of like holding spaces. And contractually, Don Barons would receive it at the end of the shoot, and he wanted this. He was like really like, "I'm gonna get this $5,000 like swamp cooler. It's so awesome," and everybody
Mhm.
in the crew knew it. He was like boasting about it.
Mhm.
So what they did was they took the swamp cooler when he wasn't looking, tied it to the top of the RV when they knew it was going to do the tumble shot. So when
Mm.
you see something fly off and smash into a million pieces on the side of the road in that shot, it's his swamp cooler. And
Oh.
apparently you don't catch it when you're watching it because there's a lot of ADR going on.
Yeah.
The cheers from the crew deafened everyone because they were like, "Fuck you and fuck your swamp cooler."
Oh no.
So I mean, that was the only kind of like non-harmonious aspect of the shoot
Yeah.
that I can hear. So at least, it had like a nice solid experience, like for
Yeah.
everybody concerned. I like that. What's up?
Mm. No, that I mean, no, I could imagine stuff like that happening on a set, but that's unfortunate that they got that petty and we're just like we're gonna fuck over this guy's swap cooler, whatever it's called. But I guess it was cathartic and it made everyone feel better.
Right.
Adrian Phillips, I'd add half a star to this movie if Tommy just said, "Shut up, Meg." Uh, the
Family Guy reference,
speaking of
yay!
I because I was talking about thinking of sleepaway camp, and I just remember the counselor whose name was Meg, just like, "I'm Meg, MEG," or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? That was another thing. Like because I don't want it to sound like we're coming down on like Tom Matthews, especially too, because I do know that he's a lot of people's special Tommy. I love him in Return of the Living Dead.
Hmm.
He is playing to the back row in that performance, and I
Yeah.
remember just thinking, "Oh my God, that guy is so hot and he's having so much fun." The first time I
Yeah.
saw that movie,
Yeah.
and I still think that when I watch it, and I'm just kind of like, again, you had someone who had the capacity. He's a character actor. He has the
Hmm.
capacity, and it doesn't mean it's all he can do, but he had the ability to, kind of like bring the height, of performance. Again, if you're going to go for like funny, maybe he could have either played someone else or you could have just really gone full throttle
Yeah.
with the comedy. I don't know. I don't know what
Yeah.
would have
Well,
fixed
I
this
mean,
for me.
and Tom Matthews, like I mean, if you're considering Never Hike Alone canon, which a lot of people do,
Yeah, yeah,
he has come back
yes,
to play the role, which
yeah,
I think is like really cool that, that he had that opportunity and got to to be there and I guess revive Tommy again. And also, I mean, for anyone who played the Friday the 13th game,
Hmm.
Tommy was a character in it who you would show up. I can't remember if you could play as him, but he would be like he would show
Mm.
up during like the matches or whatever, and it was the Tom Matthews version
Oh, okay.
of Tommy.
That's the thing. I'm
Um,
not mad that he's part of the franchise. I acknowledge, like,
yeah,
he's part of it. He's family. I get
yeah.
it. Like, I
I
just, yeah.
Oh no, if you had another thought about that.
I mean, it's just, I guess, just like same as far as like the Tom Matthews of it all. Like, I appreciate him. I appreciate what he invested. It's just not mine. I don't
Yeah,
own it. Other people can own it, and that
yeah.
is totally their right and their
No, that's
business.
fine. Everyone has
Yeah.
their favorite final
Yeah.
boys and final girls.
Yeah.
See, Edward, the original Friday the 13th was June 13th, 1980. So we have the real Friday the 13th for this episode,
That's
as far as
fun.
the month. Yeah, which I mean, and that's Jason's actual birthday, June 13th. Like today was his birthday.
Birthday. Yes.
Birthday.
I'm doing, I'm leaning into Jennifer
Wow.
Tilly now.
Today.
And today is his birthday.
This is the Jennifer Coolidge.
Yeah. And today is his birthday. Big smile.
This is also the only Friday the 13th we're getting this year, unfortunately.
Oh.
And I don't know if there's one for a while.
I mean, that's another thing though. I'm not going to dive into it
Yeah.
because this is not part seven, but part seven, I think, was a return to form more so than this movie for me because that structure you talked about earlier, like,
Mhm.
give me the same thing, over and over again, because that's the thing I come for. Seven
Yeah.
scratched that itch for me in a huge way.
Yeah.
And it brought back, even though it was even more censored than this movie, I guess. I mean, it was more censored because there was more stuff to censor, I guess. But
Mhm.
even with all the censorship and all the things plucked out of it, there's still so much more to that movie that feels true to a Friday the 13th flick, what I
Yeah.
turn to a movie like that for
I agree.
than this does.
Yeah.
Including Jason, which we can get into unless
Yeah.
somebody has another
I
comment to
I
make.
know we've talked about timeline before, but Amethyst is just reminding us that this should also be sometime in the early 90s based on the time jump in part five. Because remember, it was like well, two, three, and four all take place like in the same week or whatever, and
Hmm.
then it just like it jumps ahead. But that's it's always interesting to think about. So yeah, we're in the 90s here in Jason
So
Lives.
stupid.
Grant Dempsey, McLaughlin also originally planned to introduce Jason's father at the end of this movie,
Elias.
Elias Voorhees. The scene was storyboarded and everything. Apparently, the studio rejected that plan. The
Yeah.
studio didn't want future movies to have to be responsible for that new element of mythology, Man in Black,
Thank you.
which I actually kind of love. But the scene was apparently included in the movie's novelization,
Yes, it was.
and Elias went on to become a character in Friday the 13th comics, it seems.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
he's alluded to in Jason Goes to Hell. They mention him.
Yes, because well, isn't the sister
Yeah.
I don't know. That movie. I'm just I
We won't
can't even
even.
it's hard to comprehend. Um, I just the okay, so just more like Tommy stuff and just sort of the incongruity of it all and even like the things that go against the mythology because
Hmm.
his whole plan I feel is very vague. Like
Hmm.
there's something we see him with these like it wasn't it like almost like the occult books or just like like just the whatever it was that he was like how he was going to send Jason to hell, but it was
Right.
never really delved into like he never explained it. Not that I'm the kind of person that needs like a bunch of exposition, but
Hmm.
it's just but the fact that like it's also superfluous
Mm.
to the story. It just feels like, well, why even have it at all? You could have just been like, okay, I have an idea. Let's just drown him. Let's just chain him to a thing. Which because there was no actual like supernatural magic or anything being used, but it
No.
was like this idea. I have to get all these supplies, and it's just like, well, where did you come up with this idea? Like, what was what was the basis for this happening? But he keeps
Yeah.
talking about like this is the only way to send him back to hell. And then he says something to the effect of like where Jason originally drowned in
Yeah.
1957. And that keeps coming up, and I just think like, but he didn't. They thought he drowned.
Right,
And
right.
this, I mean, this has been established. This is continuity. He didn't. He just went off and he lived like um
Caveman.
a caveman. Well, like, yeah, he was just a forest dweller
A hermit, yeah.
for however many years.
Right.
So it's just like the things that are being discussed here, or not discussed rather, are not even like lining up with anything. So I just feel like beyond all the things that are lacking with this Tommy, just in terms of like the empathy of it all, I just feel like we're even missing the whole purpose of what he's doing,
Right.
because it just happens, and it just, at the end he's not even able to successfully do it, and then it just like Megan comes in and she just uses the propeller to, I guess, would it have even mattered? They could have just left him down there because he was awake at the end anyway. So it felt like it was just, you could see the writing. It was
Do
just
me
like the movie's got a
right.
movie.
No, do me a favor. Like, well, I was watching the climax when I woke up this morning. I got to watch it, and I did sit there and watch it. And while I was watching
Mhm.
it, I just noticed, even just in terms of, we want to talk about congruity, just like from camera shot to camera shot, the fact that like it looks like Jason has sunk pretty damn low while he's fighting Tommy, and then he's choking him out, and then Tommy, I guess, drowns or whatever, just
Mhm.
goes unconscious, goes limp, and floats to the
Is he
top.
killed?
Yeah, right. And then she goes in to like retrieve the body that's like bobbing on the top of the water. But when she does, all of a sudden Jason is like right there, like grabbing her foot. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess that section of the lake isn't as deep as I originally thought. It looked like they fell,
Yeah.
pretty, like at least 30 feet deep. But now it
Yeah.
looks like it's maybe more like 15 or less.
If
Then
that.
we cut to her pulling on the motorboat and trying to get the motor going so the propeller can be pushed into Jason's face. And because she's not a superhero, we don't see her. And I would have been totally game for this if she would have just tipped the motorboat and just pushed it down into the water like a good 10 feet. But she doesn't do that. She just kind of like is hanging off of it, and her body weight, I guess, has it maybe tipping a bit. But all of a sudden, the propeller from the motor is in Jason's face. So I'm like, wait, where is he? He's chained to a rock that is at the bottom of the lake. As far as I know, it's not rolling around. So he just keeps getting higher and higher just so the movie can movie. And again,
Mhm.
if you're on board with it up until that point, maybe I wouldn't care, but I'm not, so I do.
Yeah. It was definitely something that had stood out to me,
Yeah.
but it's far less egregious to me than, yeah, because like you said, like there's already things that were just like, yeah, that it's like it's to be expected. Brianna, Jason died by water. How do we use that?
Oh my God, that should have been in this movie. That would have been
Yeah.
great.
Can we,
Um,
okay, you said you wanted to talk about Jason in it because we're,
yes.
we're neglecting the Jason of it all.
Okay. Because CJ Graham is another section of this movie that
Yeah.
also like just learning about the making of it, which I suggest everybody do. I haven't watched all the special features of my Blu-ray, and I can't wait to. Because even movies I dislike, I want to learn more about the background of them, and it'll dimensionalize it for me. At
Mhm.
least the experience, and I can think of that while I'm watching the movie in the future. And it's already helping because CJ Graham's primary concern was safety on this. He
Mhm.
took the job really, really seriously. He also was a replacement, so I think he was especially careful not to upset anyone on the set.
Yeah.
Because the original guy who was cast was this gentleman whose name I wrote somewhere, Dan Bradley. He's the Jason in the paintball sequence, and
Right.
apparently it got back to the studio. Someone from the studio was visiting and checked out the dailies, was not pleased with his appearance because he had a few more pounds on him than the Jasons prior.
Yeah.
And he also has a really, really large head. When you look at that scene, Jason's skull is huge and round.
Mm.
And so they were all like, oh no, 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 no. Now, we don't care enough about these movies to reshoot that footage, but we're recasting. We're going to
Yeah.
send you someone else. And this guy was also the stunt coordinator. So he had to continue working on the film after he was recast. So good for you, Dan Bradley. You're a hero and you're never at the conventions, as far as I know, but somebody is
Yeah.
remembering you. So good for
Reminds me
you.
of the Melrose Place story of the pilot where they had originally cast Billy,
Oh.
which was not Andrew's shoe, and then he had to do a shirtless scene, and they're just like, "Oh no,
Oh.
no!" So then they recast him with Andrew's shoe,
With the soccer
and so
player. Yeah.
yeah, and then suddenly, I guess like nobody told, like his Grant show has just been like nobody told the guy, and he just like showed up or something, and there
Oh,
was
that's terrible.
yeah,
I hate that
um,
shit.
oh,
But so yeah,
it was
so
terrible,
Dan
but
Bradley
yeah.
was a champ. He stayed on and he didn't do
Um,
anything to like,
Can,
damage the
CJ Graham, that
film.
like he's just known as like because there's all these shots throughout the movie of him just like walking, and we got those
Yeah.
like tight pants on
Oof.
his bubble butt.
Yeah, he's a very
And then
muscular
yeah,
gentleman. He's
yeah,
hot to this day. He was hot then, he's hot
yeah,
now. He does the convention circuit a lot.
yeah.
He has an active Instagram profile. He posted something as recently as 3 days, and I was like, "Ooh, daddy."
Do
So,
you do you have
yes,
a favorite Jason actor? And this is a question for everyone, so feel free to chime in the
I
chat or in comments.
I have to say there was something so, even though I found this Jason um very easy on the eyes, because yeah, I can, there are moments where I can, CJ
Mhm.
Graham's one of those guys you can see from the front and you can tell, you can see the muscles in his back from the front. But it's so I appreciate that. And also, I mean, he did a really good job. I like all the ones who came before. There's no Jason that I dislike up until this point. But when Kane Hodder came on for 7, he brought something new. And I felt like,
Yeah.
again, there was something that really breathed life back, not just into the franchise, but into
Mhm.
just that character. Suddenly he seemed to have a point of view again. He seemed to be angry in a way that
Yeah.
none of the other Jasons were, even the most aggressive ones. I think maybe the most aggressive just below Kane Hodder would be Ted White for me from the final chapter. He's scary
Yeah.
as fuck. Like, I would not want to be in a room with him
I think
as Jason.
he was really good.
Yeah.
But I would agree. I mean, like that's Kane Hodder, had the rule for 4 movies.
Yeah. But 7 is
And
my favorite performance of
I
his.
mean, it's just and it's like the look of Jason in that movie as well.
Oh,
It's just like it's the best.
yeah.
It is. But yeah, there's so many nuances that he brought to it because like up until this point,
Hmm.
Jason was just sort of like it's just like yeah, whatever. Just yeah, as the John Carpenter would say, just walk, Nick. Just
Yeah.
walk. And that's I feel like the direction that most of them go. I mean, who am I to say? But there's certainly a lot more characterization
Sure.
that Kane Hodder brought to the role. And I mean, like even like because I look, there's so many factors to it, like the mask, the
Yeah.
overall like the look of like whatever the costume is, or like the deterioration. Because I mean, we've talked about this. I prefer pre-Deadite Jason. Like I like the
Sure.
human Jason. I think that
Deadite.
that's scarier. Well, people, I mean, I've said like zombie Jason, and people have been like, he's not a zombie, he's
Right.
undead.
Right.
But I mean, I Baghead will always be my favorite Jason, part
I
two.
mean, particularly Steve Dash, because
Yeah,
his was the eye that was interacting with Amy Steele when she was pretending to be
yeah,
his mother, and he's still largely he's very much a
yeah,
threat, but he's still also playing that man-child
yeah.
kind of angle that is really scary to me. Kane Hodder kind of like feels like man
Mm.
Jason to me. Not that CJ Graham's
Well,
doesn't, but
yeah.
Kane Hodder and
I wasn't
Steve
so
Dash,
much
yeah.
talking about the performer. That was
Oh,
more when
okay.
we were talking about
Just the
yeah,
characterization on
just
screen.
well, just like the look of Jason and all that. So yeah,
Okay.
I like that. With this Jason, like it's almost like his skin like has this like tree bark look to it. Like it's almost like
Yeah.
he's what's that movie that William
Friedkin? Yeah.
Freakin did with that was about the trees or something. It was like The Guardian.
Oh, okay. Okay, I haven't seen it.
Oh my God, I don't remember what it was specifically, but
Oh.
I just look at Jason in this and it's just like, he's come out of the ground. There's something very like bark-like about the texture and like the way that he looks. He's also got those like I guess he gets them from the paintballers, like
Oh,
the
the yellow
gloves and
gloves.
all like the utility, the like he's just collecting things along the way. So uh Kane Hodder, oh Grant Dempsey says Kane Hodder,
Mm.
22.8 Kane. Um Amethyst Frost actually says Betsy Palmer clears any Jason, no offense.
Oh, that's sweet. I like
Uh
that.
Adrian Phillips says Ted White or the guys from Two.
Mm.
Uh, Grant Dempsey, love the angry breathing.
Hmm.
Uh, Adrian also says from Seven. Seven is a movie directed by Buechler. I think
John
that's a
Carl Beekler. Yes.
Buechler, an effects
Yes.
artist. Spelling
So good.
might be
Love that
butchered.
man.
C. Edward. CJ Graham is hot, but mine is probably Derek Mears from the remake, even though I don't care
Oh,
for that film very much. Derek played the I mean he's been in a lot, but he was the werewolf in Cursed, Wes Craven's
oh, that's
Cursed. We talked
right.
about that.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Also want to give a shout out to Richard Brooker from Part 3. I loved his kind of like lazy, I don't give a fuck, Jason. I'm
The
gonna
like
kill you.
lumbering, the
Yeah.
lackadaisical, and he had that kind
Yeah.
of like the hump.
And then the
Yeah.
glee when he tears his mask off and just kind of shows his face to
You can't be alive.
yeah, that's right, to Dana Kimmel. No! 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 So great. And little boy Jason, I can't remember the
Ari
actor's
Lehman.
Ari Lehman playing little
Yeah.
boy Jason coming out of the
Yeah.
lake. Love that.
Yeah.
And Warrington Gillette playing the Pounce Jason coming out of the window at the end of two.
Mm.
Just to give everyone a little love. Like yeah,
Yeah.
they're all good, but yeah, the one I
And
respond to most
then
is Seven.
Ken Kurzinger is the Freddy versus Jason one.
Uh-huh, yeah.
He was also the short order cook in
Yes.
Welcome to New York
Yeah.
diner. And yeah, I think that's all of them. And, yeah, I
I
hope
think
we
so,
didn't.
yeah.
Yeah.
The thing about did people say anything else or can I say?
No, I think you can go ahead.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thing about it has nothing to do with CJ Graham. It has to do with the design because you were mentioning the tree bark, Jason, and I love
Yeah.
that. It might stay with me forever. Like eucalyptus tree, particularly because he's so pale.
Yeah.
But that design, I do have to say, this is like one, I don't know if it's a demerit or just a critique of the design. This is the
Mhm.
first Jason I look at who my immediate impulse isn't to run or be scared. It's actually more to just kind of pose, stand there, do peace sign, and take a picture with him. He looks kind of like convention circuit Jason, because he does look designed. That's the thing. The dirtiness, the grit. That's the only thing that's
Yeah, I know
missing
you
for
love
me
the
from the
grit.
design. I love the grit from this
Yeah.
franchise. That's what I associate with this franchise. It's just like the outdoors, the
The
heat,
homemade quality.
the slapping of the
You've talked
bugs
about
against your
that.
neck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. So maybe that's another thing. This had a high budget and maybe there's too much production in it for my liking. Maybe I wanted, them to have to I mean, it sounds like they had to overcome Don Burns for sure. But the other thing is, as far as a character note, and this was a huge point, I think, for both of us
Yeah.
in Halloween Resurrection, happens to Jason in this movie. Because, we're supposed to be afraid of this character. Jason has Megan, and he's going to kill her. All of a sudden, Tommy starts shouting at him, and he turns around, drops Megan, and just starts going toward Tommy.
He could
Now,
have
as
just
if-
like
Exactly.
yeah.
He could have taken her out so easily, and then because that's what I feel like Jason would have done. You have her now. I did think about a parallel, kind of, but it worked for me in the final chapter where you've got Tommy on one side and you've got his sister on the other, and Ted White's Jason has to decide which one am I going to chase. We even addressed it, I think, in that
Yeah.
conversation about how he's like, no, I like the girls. I like chasing the girl. So I can get the boy later, but I want the girl.
Yeah.
And
His legs are little. It'll be easier to
yeah,
catch
it'll
up with
be
him.
easier to
Yeah.
get this kid. He's never gonna look like me and try to empathize with me. But anyway, the thing is, he doesn't have either of them, so he literally does have to choose between them. You had her, Jason. You could have just and then gone after Tommy, and you would have
I
had
mean,
one more kill on your side.
he
I don't. Yes, yes.
he also could have like conceivably killed her and been like, "Hey Tommy, have fun on the lake." Gone and killed all the kids.
Oh, that would have been
And
amazing.
then just sat on the dock just with his arms crossed, like, just like in his lap and just been like, you gotta come back in sometime and I'm gonna
It
kill you. Like,
it just sends a signal that like literally anyone could start yelling at Jason while he's mid-kill, and
yeah.
Jason would stop, look at them, and then go to them because it happens again. He starts to go toward Tommy, and then she starts screaming for Tommy. He stops, turns around again toward Megan, who's on the shore, and then Tommy has to start yelling at him again to coax him to come follow him. And I'm just like, okay, dogs are smarter than Jason at this particular juncture. And Jason, this is the same man who took out the power in, the houses in the fourth movie. This is the same guy who, knew I need to hide my face, but I feel more comfortable behind this thing because then people will think I'm that guy, that asshole who keeps pretending to die in part 3. I mean, this is like the beginning of Dopey Jason for me. And I think that's another huge point against me. And it has nothing to do with CJ Graham's performance. He was only doing what was on the page.
Yeah, well, he was doing what he was directed to do.
Exactly, 100%.
And yeah, and things are just so murky at the end because, like, Tommy's like, go to the kids. And then she does just that. He's like, no, Megan, come back here, come back. And it's just like exhausting.
I do have to say, I think there is a legit creepy moment with this, Jason, that I didn't even remember. But when I saw it, I was like, see, you've got gold here.
Yeah.
And we'll address what I was about to say. Here, okay, I'll just continue the thought. It's the moment he's in the cabin, fully in view, and Nancy's there, and she sees him, little girl Nancy. And he's going toward her, and she's laying in her bed, and he full on hovers over her. And it's not like there's nothing nefarious in the way of like a Freddy Krueger. I see Freddy Krueger do that, my alarm goes off. But just because there's a weird curiosity, like, never killed a little girl before kind of thing happening for me, and just the question mark in the air of like, is he gonna, like, he has every opportunity, is he gonna do it? And just about that, just that isolated moment, because she shuts her eyes, prays, and he goes away because he hears the cavalry showing up, and he decides to, well, I don't want to get caught, so he leaves. Kind of makes sense, but I just the anticipation, wondering what he was going to do, that was the creepiest moment for me out of this whole movie.
Yeah, well, I mean, Jason, because I'm thinking of like Michael, who killed the kid in was it 2018? The kid with the raspy voice.
The one
sounded like he was
just
smoking a lot of cigarettes.
He just wants to go to dance classes. He just wants to go to dance classes. That's his thing, Dad.
He just wants to dance and smoke cigarettes.
I love shooting with you, but I also love dancing, and that's my thing. And you gotta accept that.
But Michael didn't. He like neglected to kill the baby in that tracking shot.
Because there's no fun.
Jason has never killed a child. He's gone after them.
Yeah.
And okay, so that's sort of like the disconnect there, because like it's almost like, and I know this isn't really in the continuity of the movies as far as I know, other than like, I guess when Amy Steele is like, Jason, do his mother, and he's just seeing Betsy Palmer. But in the game, there's like the whole, like, it's almost like Pamela Voorhees is talking to Jason and being like, kill everyone. But we know that Mrs. Voorhees is like, it's all about protecting the children. It's all about like, no harm can come to the children.
Yeah.
And since Jason is so attuned to his mother, he's just so keyed into, he's a mama's boy.
Yeah.
That he would do her bidding or just like respect, the things, like everything that he's doing is just sort of carrying on her work that she started in the original. So it's always peculiar to me that, okay, so he's, has no problem killing Tommy as like Corey Feldman. And now you have these like kids here that it's like, that's the thing. It's just, and that's why I hate that the kids are in this movie, because I never feel the stakes.
No.
It's like, sure, he Kool-Aids himself into the cabin. But I'm never afraid.
Oh yeah.
And this was a big one, because normally he just like breaks the door down, but this time he like broke the wall.
Yes, he did.
Around the door. But yeah, it's just like I never felt And I mean, this is obviously like the kids too, just like with all their stupid dialogue and stuff. I never felt scared for them. I didn't
No.
care about them. You care about this Nancy girl more than I do. I'm just gonna put that out there. But it
Okay.
was like it just felt like, why are you, as Judge Judy would say, don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. Because you're not gonna kill these kids. It's like, don't even try to waste my time making me think that you're going to. But again,
Right.
does Jason even, would he kill kids? Like, it's just like maybe, and actually this is a point that Grant Dempsey is bringing up here. He's a zombie now, so he doesn't have that human cunning anymore to respond
Ooh.
to your him being like called like, come here, Jason. But could that apply to like him, I guess, like the rules that he plays by, just like what is off limits?
Right. And see any of that level of insight just in the writing. I'm not saying it has to be spelled out for us or that characters. I mean, I wouldn't be against characters kind of realizing he's not of this earth anymore. How do we use that? Or anything like that. But but I mean, just even for a mindfulness toward that, like while you're writing, because that's again, Tom McLaughlin had a regard, obviously, for the lore, hence the allusion to Elias Voorhees that did not get used. His instincts were there. I just wish they could have been placed in different places. That's how I
Yeah.
know that I have arguments with people all the time when they like a director who and when most people regard a director very, very highly, and I do not like them. And they'll be like, why? I mean, they make good films. People obviously like attuned to them. Why are you not attuned to what they're doing? And I'm like, that's just the thing. Where they put the camera is not where I'm interested in looking. So everything about their impulse, whatever interests them, does not interest me, which puts us at odds from the get-go. There's probably not a lot of hope if I want to see what's just out of frame, just point the
Yeah.
camera in the other direction or get a reaction shot. Or there's a more interesting story happening outside the building, like any of that. I do have to say, I know that the creative team did not want, like they made it expressly clear to Tom McLaughlin, we understand you want kids because they haven't been really used outside of like the opening sequence where they're all just asleep, and
Hmm.
Betsy Palmer's, we
Yeah.
know now, like tapping around and everything, like making sure they're safe. But it's shown ambiguously to kind of like pose a threat, like, oh my God. I mean, this is a franchise that started with children in peril, question mark. And so I understand, again, the impulse to introduce them, but the studio made it clear we don't want any children killed. And the creative team responded, we don't either. And I'm like, okay, that's great. You don't have to kill a kid for me. I don't get off on that. But what I do
Hmm.
want, I love children in peril because immediately you've got me interested. I'm like, what's going to happen to the kid? Are they going to be okay? Same thing with like an animal. If an animal's in peril, whether I like the movie or not, I'm going to watch at least to see, well, does the cat get it? Does the dog, don't hurt the dog. Oh, he hurt the dog. I'll be
Hmm.
at least a few more seconds enveloped in what you're presenting to me than I was
Yeah.
because I never felt the stakes, like you said. But this is the thing. Just make the peril real. And there again, there was a sliver of it while he was hovering over Nancy. I didn't, but when you have the rest of the kids doing takes to each other, just kind of like, we're dead meat. I don't need that. I don't need
Yeah.
that in my diet of
No.
horror.
I need the fucking the sleepaway camp. Eat
Hey,
shit and die.
hey,
Right,
Angela,
like-
how come you never shower with the other girls? Huh?
Eat shit and live.
Eat shit and live.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good.
Oh, it's endlessly quotable. The okay. You were talking about like the side characters
Yeah,
before, because you mentioned like the couple were they on the date in the graveyard? I don't even know where they were. I know that the
I don't
gravekeeper
know.
was nearby, but
Yeah,
like there's
the
just,
caretaker.
I
Yeah.
feel like yeah, like a lot of the side characters in this movie are just kind of like disposable, but not in the way of like, because all the characters in this movie are ultimately disposable, but like
Hmm.
none of them are like really making an impression or just like leaving anything. Like it just seems like there are these vignettes like with that scene, and it's just like we're introduced to them as quickly as they are thrust from the movie, and it just makes me think like I would have rather we spent more time
Mhm.
with Sissy or Paula or Court
Sure.
than to just waste it on like just having more kills in the movie. And I'm some of the kills like it just felt like not that they were off screen, like there were some, but it just like when the caretaker is stabbed, we don't see the bottle go into him. We just see his like a close up on his face and the expression. So I don't know if that was like studio meddling of just like, censorship or anything, because
Right,
we know that
right.
was a huge problem in
Sure.
six, but there's not really anything other than maybe when she gets her head like twisted around and turned off. Like I can't think of anything that's really stands out to me, unless I'm just
Sheriff
misremembering.
getting bent back in half. It's still look at you waving it
I mean,
away.
I'm, no, I was doing the
Oh,
like,
okay. I thought you were going, whatever.
but I mean, maybe a little too, because no, because I'm thinking of like, Nightmare on Elm Street 4 with, what's her name? The bench presser, because she has her like arms bent back and there's
Oh,
like
uh-huh.
that all like that's effective. I'm not seeing any, I'm just hearing that. Maybe there's like a crack or something. Like it just
Hmm.
everything
Well,
felt,
that was censorship. The MPAA like cracked down
yeah.
hard on that. There was more footage there that they had to keep trimming it, taking out frames, taking out frames,
Okay.
taking out frames until they returned it. But I mean, at least
Debbie. Thank
Debbie.
you. And I can always count on Amethyst Frost to
Thank you,
just come in with the
Amethyst.
characters' names.
I
Yeah.
have no memory. I know who he's talking about though, and I love me some Debbie. I thought, is it
Yeah.
Deb? But I didn't dare say
Debbie.
the
I
wrong
remember
name.
Sheila,
Oh yeah,
but it's just like, but
Sheila.
yeah, Sheila and
Oh my God,
yeah.
talk about memorable kills. Anyway, we're talking about
And
this one.
memorable kills, but
Okay.
memorable characters as well.
Yeah.
Just like
Okay.
ones that are, yeah.
And that's another thing is like I can see the intent, but like there's not a lot of like stand out to me. And I don't want to just like beat the same drum, but I mean when you were mentioning the caretaker and when this is the difference, the quintessential difference between like I guess most people and me, maybe you, because the caretaker also does that thing where he stares down the barrel of the camera and says, "Some folks got," oh, I wrote it down. "Some folks got a strange idea of entertainment." Now, I hear wah wah when I see that moment. There are other people who see that moment and go, "Ah, he knows," like, and I don't mean to make them sound, like less smart or anything like that. It's
Yeah.
just their humor. And Tom McLaughlin even went on the record again saying, like, you can't. He was trying to also, I think, critic proof this
Yeah.
movie and essentially the franchise at this point because he was very mindful about the audience and the critics and knew if he did something like that, his line of thinking was you can't rag on something that knows what it is. So if we know that we're a strange brand of entertainment and we wink, wink, nod, nudge, nudge to the audience and to the critics about it, how can they get angry about what we're doing if we know exactly what we're doing? And I do have to say, like, we have every now and then unpacked, like, maybe something, because I've seen examples of camp where somebody is mindfully crafting something that is paying homage to camp and that is in
Yeah.
itself becoming camp. But I think that takes a really, really deft hand and a lot more attention to detail than people might imagine. You can't just kind of like, because I think a lot of people imagine camp as people walking around in costumes, not investing anything. And I think we've
Yeah.
said before, camp is investing everything and more.
Yeah. Well, you also mentioned like just like that's like what Tom McLaughlin had said, just like, getting the scary movie slash Scream script and being
Sure,
like, I
sure.
already made this movie, but you're bringing up this reference here, just like some people like staring right into the camera.
Yeah.
Some people have a strange sense of humor, whatever the line is. And then you look at Scream, where there's, Sydney on the phone, Nev Campbell, just being like, why watch those movies like that? They're all the same thing. Some big-breasted girl running up the stairs when she should be running out the front door. It's insulting. And then 2 seconds later, I mean, she does go for the door first, and there's the chain, but she ends up running up the stairs. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
like, that's how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you wink at your audience without
Yeah.
like insulting them. And yeah, there was a lot of because then there was the other thing where they're like, where Tommy's like, dig up the grave, like after he's like reburied or
Mm-hmm.
put all the dirt back in the plot. And he's like, does he think I'm a fart head or whatever the
Yeah.
line is? And then
Yeah.
we go to the kids. Yeah. Just
Yeah.
like,
I wouldn't quite put that transition as on par with Muffin crawling up to the camera, looking up, and then we cut to hot dogs on the
Oh
grill.
my God, I love that though.
Exactly,
I
that's
love that.
perfection. Whereas this, there's something that doesn't work for me. And I don't even know if I can articulate it. All I can say is that's the difference. I see Muffin and then I see the hot dog sizzling and I go, I see him going like, what does he think I am, a fart head? Yeah. And I go,
Yeah,
it's just not my thing. But I mean,
yeah,
there are, and again, I opened this pod with you're the best, which is some of the improv that Darcy DeMoss did, Nikki, playing Nikki while
yeah.
she's writing, oh, what's his name? Court.
Court. Yeah,
Yeah, well, she's writing him and everything like that. And later on, you can tell that it's just like improv, that they just kind of turn the cameras on them and just let them just go until we're done.
yeah,
And because with Court, for me, the real kicker, and I do kind of get a chuckle out of it because it is kind of so bad it's good.
yeah.
It's when he's driving the RV and she's in the back, being wrestled with Jason, and he doesn't know what's going on, but he's just listening to the music and he's so into driving the RV, and he just for I think it's about 4 times just goes, "Yeah, this is great. This is great. This is great. This is great." I'm just like, would you say something else for the love of God? Like
Yeah.
maybe you just. I mean, even if they're just letting you run the camera and that you don't know what to say, just imagine what would I say if I were just playing music and I just want to, and then he does. He's just gonna like, "Hey, are you back there taking a dump?" And I'm just like, "Oh my God." That's actually
Apparently,
kind of,
that's
yeah,
John Travolta's nephew.
yeah. I think Ellen Travolta's son, his
C.
sister. Yeah.
Edward says he also is saying they reshot the kill of the couple on the picnic and the kill of the cemetery caretaker to bulk up the kills. So,
Oh, okay.
maybe that's what it has like kind of like it feels out of place, that whole segment. Like it's just there.
Yeah, it does feel very kind of like plunked. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not necessary. It doesn't really add anything, but I mean, and that's another thing. It's like, to say what you will about the structure of Five, there's nothing I'd pluck out of that movie.
Speaking of five, and not this five, but Halloween five.
Oh,
And this is really like the last thing I have to say about anything.
okay.
So, I mean, if you have more to go on about, we can do that. But Halloween 5, infamously hated by many, loved by a few, including us. One of the things that gets a lot of criticism for, like Halloween 5 is the clown cops, or just like the sound
Oh,
effect that accompanies like as they're woo or whatever,
yeah,
all
yeah.
that shit is. And I mean, that's never bothered me. I mean, I think that it's stupid.
Yes.
But it's a through line that we get throughout the whole movie. But people like talk about that and just like, I loathe that. This is a horrible movie because of that. And I mean, maybe people have higher expectations with Halloween. I understand, like as a
Sure.
franchise. But I try to understand in Jason Lives here. You've got the paintballers, and there's that like goofy like military academy music, like dum 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 dum, as they're like walking around, like especially the one clumsy guy.
Yeah.
And I have to question like why is that acceptable here? Like why is Jason Lives just like, put on this pedestal and just been like, oh, that doesn't, something that is the exact same thing is
Hmm.
here and it's accepted. Whereas in Halloween 5, it's looked upon and just been like, well, that's just stupid. And I could, maybe if there's an argument that like, well, it's only one scene in Jason Lives where it's like a reoccurring thing in Halloween 5. But I mean, there's like a counter argument to that too. It's just like, well, there's consistency. There is that through
Hmm.
line in Halloween 5. And there's also a joke, and there's something very European about Halloween 5, which is one of the things that I really love about it. And I think about those early Dario Argento movies, like the pre-Deep Red, like his Animal trilogy, where he always tried to like infuse comedy. I mean, he did it later on as well, but like more so earlier in his directing career
Sure, sure.
and writing, where there would be like these little like these non sequitur gags that would show up in his movies, and it would be like stupid shit like that. And I just attribute that to like a Dominic Authentic Girard of just like, oh, well, this is the thing that they do. Let's just put a sound effect of, because, people associate cops sometimes with like being clownish or
Yeah.
something. So it just it feels like it fits the vibe for me because it just still
Mm.
feels European. Here, it just feels like a joke. And it's just more reason why just like, hey, more of like this is a silly time. We're kind of it's these executives that don't really feel like executives. Like I don't look at them and I can't picture them
Mm.
in a boardroom. They're just sort of like saying that they are. And we're getting all this music. So I want to know what you make of it. I want to know what everyone else makes of it. Like, why does this get a pass? Like nobody ever talks about this, or is it a complaint? But in Halloween 5, that's an issue.
I'd say maybe it's because maybe it's easier to pick at something that's more memorable because those cops definitely, when you say the cops in five, Halloween 5, like I know what you're talking about
Yeah.
immediately. I go, "Meow," and everything like
Yeah.
that. That said, it's its own version. I had my own kind of version of that with this movie. When I think at one point I was on Instagram, I was looking for GIFs of uh, Friday the 13th. I just typed in Friday the 13th, and there was one that was unmistakably Tom Matthews' face, but it was drawn. It was not like pulled
Mhm.
from the film. It was a drawn face, and it had a little red dot that kind of moved around on his forehead, and he was framed by the line, "Wherever the red dot goes, you bang." And when I looked at it, the second I saw it, I was like, "Oh, I know that moment." I
Yeah.
never really thought about it. I never really processed it. But now that you mention it, like I'm not looking at that going like, who the hell is that and what is that line? I'm like, got it. So
Mhm.
it's its own version, his interactions with the cops, I guess, of memorable. And I do think about the sheriff, but mostly in his interactions with his daughter, and mostly about how I just those scenes don't go anywhere. I think I can't answer because I'm not on the other side. If I liked this movie, I might be able to answer the question. Maybe if there's someone in the comments answering, we'll read that. But all I can
Yeah.
say is it, I'm trying to find a way to close. Let me put it this way.
Well,
In a nutshell, hold on, just in
yeah.
a
Yeah.
nutshell, there's another impulse that there was like to go with this movie that I'm like, good. Renaming Crystal Lake Forest Green. Like we're just gonna wipe the slate clean and pretend like it never happened. Good impulse. I like it. I never get a sense of the town being a
Yeah.
place trying to bury this secret. And maybe it's
Yeah.
because Nightmare on Elm Street, my opinion, does it so much more successfully.
It's
Even
sort of,
Halloween by trying not to celebrate Halloween
yeah.
in Haddonfield.
It's sort of
There's other
established in
examples.
5 because remember when they're like the mayor and all that, like they're
Yeah,
talking about it.
yeah.
So yeah.
But again, not one of the most memorable parts of that movie. I do
Yeah.
remember it, but again, like I wish again, I guess just more mindfulness toward the things that I guess I prioritize, not even just like from the mind, like they should have done this, because I think it's just about what I respond to when I see these movies. And this movie is comprised of less things that I
Yeah.
respond to positively. So what are people saying?
Well, no, you just made me think
Oh,
of
yeah.
because it's like we had to change the name from Crystal Lake to Forest Green, and it's just making me think of Halloween 2018 with like that's just some bit people had to tell themselves to make them feel better. Like, we just changed the name to Forest Green because it's a bit that we had to do to make ourselves feel better.
And you know what? I got
Uh,
more of a sense of that
yeah,
in arguably Friday the 13th, 2009, a sense of the place,
yeah,
more kind of like Jason's the thing we all know about, but we don't speak of,
yeah,
which that Marcus Nispel, that director, is really fond of because I got the same sense of
yeah,
that environment in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like
yeah,
when we meet the neighbors in the trailer and everything like that. It all just
yeah.
seems like this is probably something a few people know about, but they all just kind of like silently accept,
Yeah.
this is as long as you stay out of his way, what anything that happens to you is your fault. And it's not that I agree with it, but it's that it makes sense to
I
me
mean, it's a
as a
real
function of the town.
world, yeah, mentality,
Yeah.
yeah.
And more
Um,
interesting to me than the way it was presented here.
yeah, just in response to the clown cops and paintballers, Amethyst says, "I hate the clown cops and the paintballing clown execs." So,
Mm,
equal opportunity. Both of them are up for up for the picking.
I don't laugh
Um,
at any of them either.
no,
Like I don't laugh
no,
at the cops and I don't laugh at the paintballers.
no, no. I don't laugh at the cops, but you're right. Like they leave more of an impression, and
Hmm.
I mean, that's important. If you're if you're making a choice, does it leave an impression? That
Yeah, exactly.
certainly is a point in favor for Halloween 5. If more people are
Sure.
talking about that, even if it's bad, bad
Mm.
press is still press.
What do
Adrian,
what do they remember you for?
yeah. Adrian, I'm telling you, this movie tries to mix Friday the 13th and Police Academy. Uh,
That's
yeah.
perfect.
Amethyst, Halloween Five's comedy is Tina never being sensible if she can help it. And Cookie Woman, Cookie Woman,
A cookie woman.
the fuck does
I'm
that
never
mean?
sensible if I can help it. Oh, love that moment. It's so stupid, but I love
Yeah. Craig is saying the music with the cops didn't make sense at all. The music in this scene at least kind of fades into the background and makes a little bit of sense. But I agree with Adrian, Police Academy.
Yeah, I
Okay,
never.
okay, I can see an argument there.
Me too. Me too.
But Craig's a defender of Jason Liz, but I see your argument and I accept that. It's actually like a piece of music rather than a like just like sound effects. So
Right, 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 right.
okay, I concede partially. Um, do you think that it's about time to move on to the you know what?
Yeah.
All right, yeah, let's get to the cherry picker.
It's not like we kill people on purpose.
All right, we need a cherry on top. Um, I'm we barely talked about this character, but I mean it's almost
Oh,
like it's not even like because you might have a different opinion because we did barely talk about this character.
okay.
But the one who made an because we're talking about who made an impression,
Yeah.
regardless of whether it was good or not, and who, maybe didn't piss us off totally. I'm kind of thinking Nikki
Oh,
because even
really?
though yeah, she has like like limited screen time, but she kind of made an impression for me. And I think that actually might be my favorite kill in the movie, just
The
the
head going
yeah,
into the metal.
yeah.
Well, also, like, with reference to the nudity, like, they did ask her. They just
Yeah.
asked her too late. The contract was already signed, and she was like, contract's already signed. Sorry, guys. And I'm like, good for you for standing your ground. So I like that actress. Only other thing I'll say, because I'm fine with it, unless you want my little honorable mention. I want to give it up to Lisbeth, Nancy McLaughlin, because this is
Okay.
the thing. Another thing I really like about her, another reason where I was just kind of like, you really could have capitalized on this. She's got one of the greatest screams, and she does it like a couple times, but particularly but the most memorable is like right before she's dying when he plunges the spike or the metal rod through her head in the mud. It's full bodied. It gives me like amusement park, but also blood curdling, like my life is about to be over. It just kind of checks all the boxes for me, and I don't know. Like I said, she could have been the Sherry Moon Zombie of this movie, as far as I'm concerned, and I would have loved to see more of her. But I like Darcy DeMoss as well, and she got screwed over because she was originally cast as the topless girl in Five. They decided her breasts weren't big enough, and they brought in that other Voorhees actress to do it.
All right.
And when Darcy DeMoss saw Five, she said, "Oh, I understand now. Like, I have big breasts, but they're nothing compared to that." So she's a good sport. So I don't care either way. I'm
Yeah.
glad I just want to bring attention to those two women. They're my faves.
Yeah. No, that's right. Well, I mean, what do you guys think?
What do you guys think?
But ultimately, we're the RuPaul's. It comes down to what we think. Really, just.
Is
But
that the first RuPaul reference you've made on the
I
pod?
think it's probably the only one that I've ever made and ever.
It's both. It's
Yeah.
both.
So are we?
But the final decision is up to us.
Yeah.
Tonight, two queens stand before me.
Yeah. Well, we've got the Adrian says the girl who gets her head twisted. Her name's Sissy, by the way. What a snotty name.
I had a
Just
cat named Sissy once.
imagine that in Parker Posey. It's like
But
Piper, Sissy. Uh,
Sissy, no,
um,
no.
Nikki Parsley Parsely. I guess her last name is Parsley.
Oh, is it? Okay, I didn't
Um,
know that. I didn't
I
know
like that. Well, I like the moment where she's just like, oh, it's so like the whatever the battery died or got unplugged and it was
that.
cold out there and she's been like nagging at Court and then she just like suddenly turns around because she needs something from him. She's like, Court, you know, like,
You know what? Now that you mention it, I did think when she was at him to go outside,
yeah,
she was not, you used the right word, like the naggy thing, but I mean,
yeah.
not like in a harpy way or anything, but just like in
Mhm.
a, I was just kind of like, this is like the hot couple that's like DTF. And I love that they're more old married couple than any of the elder romantic couples that preceded them in any of the vignettes. Because she's just like, hey, get out there. He's like, I'm going, and do it fast. Or some whatever she's saying, but she's like, on him like it's like we just had sex, you came too fast, I didn't come, I don't even remember, why did he go out there? Was it because the air conditioning went, I don't even remember, but
Well, that because the power went off or like
oh, the
because
power
like
went out and she,
Jason, yeah,
yeah, and she wants the
yeah,
power back on, so she's just at him, and
yeah.
it just felt like they were an old married couple all of a sudden. I thought,
Yeah.
oh,
Well,
that's
even when
cute.
he's driving, because Jason's not even a threat at this point, because he's
Yeah,
driving recklessly and she's just like
falling
flying
all
all
over
over
the
the place.
place.
She's like,
I'm like,
Court, you
I'm
know?
like, bitch, sit down. There's a table there. Like, fine. There are
Yeah.
numerous seats. You sign, but I know the point is that she's not. He starts driving before she's even secured, and
Yeah.
he doesn't even give a shit. So
Yeah.
he's a piece of crap. But okay,
Yeah.
I'm. You know what? You turned me.
Okay.
Let's
Okay.
Nikki this.
We
I
are
like
getting
that.
some Lizbeths
Oh,
and
good.
Nikki
Okay.
or Sissy, but anyway, it's just the cherry on top. It's just, it's really the cherry on bottom.
The only thing I
Uh,
remember about Sissy is that she wants to play the card game about which cabin Jason is in. And I remember in her kill, her eyes kind of roll up. That's all I remember about her. I don't know anything
yeah.
about her as a character,
Yeah.
so no
Well, she
feeling
has
about
that.
her.
She has like maybe one of my favorite lines in the movie where she's just like, "You mean the Jason of Camp Blood?"
Mm, I have no response to
Because that was
that.
the only. It just felt like the only line that like seemed somewhat befitting of what the franchise had
Sure,
been
sure.
at that point. And just like the delivery, it was just some. It was kind of throwaway, but it was like, oh, I wanted more of this. I wanted
Yeah,
more like from these characters. But anyway.
yeah.
Last week we asked you who deserves to die the most in I just tried to do the Grudge.
What was
That was my
that?
Kayoko.
Oh, I didn't even
That
hear it.
hurts. That hurts.
I couldn't even hear it. It wasn't
Yeah.
loud at all. Like,
Oh man. Thank you. You do it
there you
better.
go.
See, I tell you, I'll do Chucky. You can do everyone else.
And that'll kill your voice enough. Like, that's fine.
I can take it for a while.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What about Jennifer
Um
Tilly as Kyoko? Like she,
uh
I don't know. Anyway, go on.
okay, anyway, we asked you who deserves to die the most in The Grudge.
Hmm.
Uh, what were their names? Okay, I nominated Spirit of Kayoko. You
Right.
nominated T Takeo? Is it Takeo?
I think it's
Um,
You kept calling him Takeo.
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 We're getting some
Takeo.
Takeo.
Oh my
Um,
God. Takeo.
yes, yes,
Or
Takeo.
Takeo. I don't know how to say it.
Takeo. Okay, so across Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube, the final vote was 119 for Spirit of Kayoko versus 357 for Takeo.
Oh,
Let's see what the people have to say.
thanks, guys. See, I didn't
They
go up. I didn't go do it in a head voice this time.
thanks, thanks, guys.
Now Zach can say it. Thanks, guys. I
Yeah.
appreciate it for rallying behind
Vicky
me.
screams, "My vote is for Takeo. Huge overreaction to finding out your wife is in love with another man. He doesn't even just punish his wife, he also murders their son and their cat. The cat, lads, unforgivable. If someone harmed
100%.
my cat, I would murder anyone who came near me. So Kayoko gets a pass for her totally reasonable reaction.
Same.
Silent Saturn. I don't think the entity in the house is really Kyoko, more like a remnant energy of her pain and suffering that can only cause pain and
Oh,
suffering in return. Hurt people, hurt people. So
that's no.
obviously, my
No,
vote goes to Takeo, just proving his wife right to look for love somewhere, love elsewhere in the first place. Also, don't do the cat like that. Complete POS.
great argument. I love
Welshman. Well, of course it's Takeo. Women can
it.
do no wrong, even if they massacre anywhere from 10 to 100 innocent people. Takeo kills only one woman, though. He is clearly the more evil of the two. Edit. Sorry, forgot he also kills the boy and cat. The
Yeah.
information is certainly needed since killing an unfaithful wife, kid, and cat is so much more dastardly. I love that word, dastardly,
Yes, yes.
than killing every man, woman, or child who even steps foot into her home. It is insane how biased these polls are. I don't know if this was like
Sarcastic?
sarcasm.
Yeah, it
You know, I've
sounds
been
like
reading it in a
it.
sarcastic way. You gotta, if you're gonna comment on the poll,
Be
you put
sincere.
put at the begin. No, put at the beginning. Read in
Sarcasm.
sarcasm,
Yeah,
so I know.
right. Sarcastic voice in
Yeah.
parentheses. We need a
Because,
parenthetical.
like, well, of course it's Takeo. Women can do no wrong, even if they massacre anywhere from 10 to 100 innocent people, because then you would have done
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Just
Uh,
be sincere.
be whatever you want. I don't care.
Be who you are.
Um,
Come as you are. Just
yeah.
indicate to us what it is.
Ruffin Boy says the cheating whore of a wife. She made him do what needed to be done.
Oh!
Oh, spicy. Uh,
Ooh.
Michael Diamond, I actually forgot about the cat, LOL, but as soon as the comments reminded me, I had to vote for Takeo.
Mm.
Mad Apple, definitely the spirit. That croaky noise haunts my dreams. Jock Squared, I wanted to vote for Ed's constant use of the non-word ambiguity,
Mm.
which is far more insidious than Kyoko's murderous curse. Sort that shit out.
Ambiguity?
And
Ambiguity?
And he's the way Jock Squared is spelling it is Ambigwitty, which I guess is
Oh,
like how it sounds when you say it.
yeah, I've said ambiguity, but I guess I'm supposed to say ambiguity.
Yeah, I
I
think it's
think
one of
I
the, it's
think I think both are okay though.
well, it's like aluminum versus aluminium.
Aluminium, I was just gonna say.
Aluminium.
Yeah, or saying the lift
Aluminium.
or the
The
elevator.
lift. Piccadilly.
Piccadilly. Oh, I don't know what.
The Bobby of Trafalgar Square.
Yes, right.
This-
The treachery expires this evening, as opposed to evil dies tonight. That will never die
yeah.
for me. All right, sorry, kid.
It will never expire. This
Yeah,
evening, at least. Uh, Parker, just keep saying ambiguity because it's funny. It's your
it's
thing.
gonna come out the way it comes out.
Yeah,
I have no control
yeah.
over it.
Parker Johnson, Kyoko is the problem. Hear me out. Like
Woo.
everyone that comes in runs or battles to KO, but why are you taking spirits that didn't do nothing because you were obsessed with someone out your race and marriage? Out your race and marriage?
What?
And that's like I'm just reading it how it's
I don't
so,
know. What does that
out
mean?
because she was marrying someone who was like not of her
Oh, outside
ethnicity
of your race and
and
marriage.
marriage.
Gotcha. Okay.
I have to die taking care of yo house and keep yo crazy ghostly husband at bay. Houston, she is the problem. She is out of your race. Out of your
I
race. Out of your race. I'm just thinking of Brenda from
yeah.
out of your race. Out of your race.
This is all me up in here. You just deal with that. That's Kyoko.
We need for Scary Movie 6, Brenda needs to come back as like a Kyoko type ghost.
As a
Just
Kyoko
haunting.
slash, yeah,
Yeah.
so is it Serena from The Ring? What's her name?
Oh, Samara.
Samara. That I
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
remember her fucking name.
Okay, we got to get through these. It's
Yes,
gonna
go,
take.
go, go.
Amph Bubbles. Takeo for sure. He was a piece of crap and was the
Thank you.
reason for everything that followed next. Unpopular opinion, but I do really love The Grudge. It's one of those movies that makes me fearful of walking down stairwells or nervous to pop my head in the attic. It's a good background movie to listen to while doing stuff
Mm,
around the house.
mm.
Overall, I'd say a pretty good movie.
That's not an unpopular opinion either.
Pretty. I just the Larry David of it. Pretty good movie.
Yeah.
Grant Dempsey. All right. So I watched this movie for the first time
Oh.
last week, and I thought the same thing about Kayoko by the end. Why is she killing people? Her murder was a horrible injustice, but she got her revenge on Takeo. Why kill just anyone who enters the house? But the more I think about it, the more I think maybe there's just isn't a spirit of Kayoko there at all. I don't think Kyoko's really in there making the choice to kill. I think the haunting is sort of an impersonal phenomenon, and it uses her form and Takeo's, Tom Cruise's cousin, etc., to manifest. And in that case, the spirit of Kayoko seems more like part of a hive mind, or not even that, but more like one particular flame in an explosion, and therefore less fit for the cherry picker than Takeo. So Takeo gets my vote for being an actual person whose evil was the detonator. Completely, not even not voting for my nomination, Grant, but also disputing its relevancy on the poll.
Well, I mean, and also not the first person to do it. That's interesting. I like thinking about that because also, I mean, that gives the opening scroll or the disclaimer, basically,
Yeah.
like the beginning, like the title, just more weight to me now. The next time I watch it, I'm going to think like, oh, it's about the pain and the suffering inhabiting the space, and not necessarily the person anymore. They've kind of become one with their, here it goes again, trauma. Drink.
What would the Britishism for trauma be?
No.
Well,
I'll have to sit on that
we'll
one.
think,
Do we have
yeah,
any
yeah.
other things to read?
Last one, Kellen. I mean, Takeo. I don't agree that she started it because I feel like the fact that Takeo immediately went to killing not only his wife but his son and the kitty tells me he's probably the reason his wife so desperately obsessed over this stranger to begin with. That was probably a better reprieve than whatever she had going on at home. Also, in an earlier pod, you asked if any listeners were straight. What? What?
Maybe we
And
did. I don't know.
and if so, are you guys turning them gay? I'm here to report I am indeed straight and I'm not gay as of
Okay.
today. Well, I guess we're failing then.
This is supposed to be a recruitment pod.
I remember,
Curses.
yeah, a conversion pod.
No,
I-
it's cool.
I do
like straight
remember,
people.
I do remember that there was a conversation about the Evil Dead franchise being
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
like more of a straight man's sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
there's not a lot of gay energy in it.
I mean, the gayest one is two, I'd argue.
Yeah, in terms of like the energy of the movie too, and that's my favorite. And then I
Yeah.
think like as a character, probably Mia.
Probably.
Yeah, she's got a lot of gay energy because I mean, Bruce Campbell does not have gay energy,
No,
no,
he has gay appeal.
but not gay energy. Yeah,
No,
yeah,
but I love him. I don't need somebody to be gay for me to love them.
yeah,
So there
yeah.
you go.
Okay, so you get to pick first.
Wow, I was not prepared for this because I always forget who we picked the week before. So
Yeah,
I didn't think like, oh, I've got this in the bag for next week.
yeah.
So I was prepared for you to have first pick because you usually do. And yeah, I'm still gonna my heart and my conscience because I have no idea who you're gonna pick. Mine, anybody who's been listening might not be surprised. I'm gonna choose Megan. I really take issue with, again, in the execution. On paper, the theory, I'm like, okay, I could get on board with that. Then I see the way it was executed, and it all comes down to like kind of like one moment for me where she says three things in succession. And it's when her father's yelling at her, and it's right before they do the whole like, when are you going to stop treating me like a child? When you stop acting like one, which is maybe the most pat exchange you can have. It feels authentic, but come on. Anyway, but the succession of lines is the first one when he says, "You don't understand, this boy is sick," and she's like, "How do you know, Dad? What'd you do? Take his temperature?" Something like that. And I'm just kind of like, oh my God, that's so stupid. Like even as a line, like that is first draft material. You don't show that to someone. It's I just think it's stupid. And then and then she says so mockingly with a big old smile on her face, "If your mother was still alive." And I'm like, okay, maybe she didn't have the best relationship with her mother. Maybe on one of her birthdays, towards the end, her mother pushed her face into the cake and she still holds resentment about it. I don't know, but ultimately, there's something about the delivery of it, and I don't know whether to blame the director or the actress or even just the person who wrote it, because there's something about it. If I were the final girl and I knew I needed to say that line, I think if I wanted to get people on my side, I'd probably roll my eyes when I said it. Like, oh, here we go again. I'm sure the next thing you're going to say is if your mother was still alive. But the fact that she takes such joy in it, I don't know, maybe she's healed. Maybe she doesn't grieve for the loss of her mother. But it doesn't make me more sympathetic to her. Again, it just kind of makes her more, there's no other word for it than antagonistic or villainous even. I'm just kind of like, you're a shitty person. And then the next thing she does, when the phone rings, she answers it. They're looking for her father, the sheriff, and she says, oh, he's in the bathroom draining his lizard. And I'm like, you're talking about your father's dick. And you're doing it like jokingly, and everything about it is gross to me. Everything, she just turned me off thrice times. and again, everything that the aforementioned things, like the fact that like the rebellion doesn't seem to come from any place that I can get on board with. She just seems to kind of like really piss her father off. And because I haven't heard about some shitty thing he did that might make him deserve it, I can't root for that. And then she doesn't even become really the final girl. She's just kind of someone who happens to, she's the final girl by default, but she does get saved, which I take issue with. And then finally the way she saves her savior in turn, I could get on board with if it were anywhere near plausible. But we already discussed Jason just keeps rising higher and higher in that water, so she can just conveniently get the propeller to his face. And it doesn't even really take him out. Tommy did take him out by immobilizing him in the lake, and he's just still sitting there awake with his eye open at the end. So what the fuck did she even really do? Like, yeah. So killer. How about you, Zach?
Okay, I'm gonna post the poll in the chat just so you guys can
fun.
vote, so we can get some preliminary results here for what's going on. I think this. Okay, so the deputy, is it Rick Cologne?
Yes.
Him. So yeah, my reasoning for that is because I mean, like, I think that both Tommy and Sheriff Garris are good contenders for the cherry picker for all the reasons that we said. Because I mean, like, you know, just Tommy being a fucking idiot, and also just like having no consequence or reprimand or introspection, or even regret for what he did throughout any of the movie, and then also just like being reckless and stupid, and then Sheriff Garris for just being like a really like unprofessional, like dangerous public servant, like law enforcement officer, like very cavalier about you know, weapon safety and all that. And I'm just getting into it, but ultimately, I mean, even though they just circle around the same beat for the movie, there is a point at the end where there is like a sliver of redemption for both characters, where I feel like, you know, ultimately, like, Sheriff Garris is like, you know, he wants to do right by his daughter. And, you know, he's concerned about the safety for the children. And Tommy, like, you know, sacrifices himself in terms of like, come after me, yada yada. It's also surface level, whatever. This deputy is there's something about him, like, inherently, like, it's hidden very well. It's beneath the surface, but there's something very sociopathic about him that I don't like. And we see it best in the moment that you described, one that with the red dot and the ya bang.
Yeah.
Because he takes this out, and of course, like the sheriff is enabling it. He's like, he's gonna blow your head off, and yada yada yada. And he's kind of like, it's almost like he might like sort of have his tongue out. Like he's almost like salivating at the thought of like getting to use this gun and like blowing Tommy's head off. And it's like yeah, I'm gonna do it.
Hmm.
And then the caretaker comes in, and as soon as the caretaker like walks in, he's like, oh, and like quickly, it's almost like he clocks it and is like hides it.
Right.
Like he's hiding something, like he's into this. And
Yeah.
then I mean, not that I'm against like pest extermination or that he like kills the cockroach and he's just like playing around with it. But his whole demeanor in the station when he's been put in charge of like watching over them. It just like I hate this guy so much. He should have died. There's like all these there was other deputies in the movie that like showed up at the end. Like, why was he not there? He was shown to be like a shitty person. He
Yeah.
should have been there. Not that like hot looking Burt Reynolds deputy who went there and said to die or the other one. Like it just like they should have been safe. It should have been that guy who died. So
Okay.
I'm nominating him.
Cool. Oh, and can I also just like for because it
Yeah.
just occurred to me, probably won't change anyone's mind, but it's important to me. She should have died. Jason had her. He had the kill. He
Yeah.
could have. She should have died.
I love how you like you I give you the floor, you like make your like 10-minute argument
Yeah.
and then I go on and this one was a little bit longer than usual. Sometimes I'm
Yeah.
just like, and then this and then
Right.
you come it's you're like the scene in Bridesmaids where Rose Byrne
Oh
is
yeah.
like
Oh,
oh and
I just want to say I do think that you and I are beyond words and that we can convey things just with a look. So kumkake, kumkake. That's us.
yeah.
We're Rose Byrne and Kristen Wiig in Bridesmaids.
Absolutely, yeah. So far we're sitting at 62% for Deputy Rick Cologne.
Okay. I don't
Prelimin
expect to win.
preliminarily, well, who knows? I mean, maybe people really don't like Megan
Maybe, but
as an FG.
I doubt it, but it's my pick. Like it's the first one
It's
that came to mind, and I was like,
it's
she should be
yours.
dead. And her I guess her last name is Garris, like her sheriff
Garrus, Megan
father,
Garrus.
Megan Garris.
And I think Rick, he's like Megan, he calls her
Oh,
Megan, and it just makes me think
Reagan.
of no, it makes me think of the skit that Jordan Peele and oh my
Keegan
God.
Michael Key.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Love him. I don't know why I was having so much trouble with that.
it's okay. I
Because
had
it's
problem with like 8 names earlier, so
yeah,
go
Keegan
on.
Michael Key and Jordan Peele,
Yeah.
the one where they're like a couple, but Jordan Peele's like playing his girlfriend,
Oh yeah,
Megan, and they're
yeah.
just like all these like they're in the restaurant or there's one where they're in the theater and she's just like I forget his name, but she's like, "Where are you?
Yes.
Where are you?"
So
Megan,
good.
Megan, I'm right here, Megan.
Yeah. Yeah. All the vocal fry in the world. Yeah. It's
Jordan
so
Peele
good.
doing vocal fry.
Oh, so good.
It's so good, yeah. Uh, Craig is saying the deputy survived because he was locked in the cell, so he probably became sheriff afterwards.
Ew.
Ew, ew,
Ow.
Megan, yeah.
Ow. Don't bother me.
Um, anyway, this has been a very lively conversation. I hope that we haven't pissed off too many people with our Jason Lives criticisms.
We did our
We
best.
did, we did, we tried. We did what we could. Remember the Halloween Kills episode where we're just like, okay, we
Oh.
know that this is gonna be rough, so we're gonna be nice, and we actually spent
Yeah.
more time being nice, but then
We
and then we're
did.
like, okay, now we're gonna be assholes, and it's just like
And
they did this and they did that.
and these things are like indefensible. Like
Yeah,
that was the thing. These are the deal breakers. That's why we
yeah,
didn't have to go as hard in them because it's just kind of like this should just be common knowledge. And
yeah.
I did incidentally rewatch Halloween Kills recently, and oh my God,
I was going to
worse.
say
It's
you've
worse.
gone down, which actually this might be a good segue into, I mean, first I should say, hey, if you've been enjoying this and you're watching, make sure to subscribe and like
Yeah.
and do all those things. You can also listen to the podcast if that's more your speed. The RSS feed link is in the descriptions down below. Again, you can join us for these live stream chats and also be influential in picking the 4th episode we do every month. So head over to my Patreon and subscribe at the Freddy Krueger tier. It's $5 a month, but look at all this fun stuff you get to enjoy. Plus, you get to hang out with us before and after the recording. So, you know, if this we've been running long, you know, but if you need more, you know, you'll get more. And also you can vote in the I'm just completely lost here right now. We're talking about the poll. Vote your heart, vote your conscience. You can either vote for Megan Garris or Rick Cologne. And that is on Patreon. You'll get to vote, which is open publicly. So you can just head over there and vote. But while you're there, stay.
Give money.
Yes. YouTube. Put the food on our table and the bread on our tables
and our kids through college.
Yes. Yes. The poll is on YouTube here. The poll is also on Instagram. Follow us at Retro Bitch Face. That's actually my main account. So I'm talking about at the Cherry Picker Pod. But I may as well segue into where you can follow me on social media, which is Retro Bitch Face on Instagram. Also Retro Bitch Face on Letterboxd. And YouTube, Zack Cherry, main channel, ZACK space CHERRY, and Zack Cherry 8 on Twitter. Where can they find you, Edward?
Hold on, ask me again in a second.
Just tell. It's fine.
It's fine. Go. Okay, because we're out, basically. Yeah. Sorry about the cat. You can find me on Instagram, and Letterboxd is where I predominate these days. And Edward is Truth, one word, traditional spelling. And yeah, if you want to know why, what specifically I don't like about Halloween Kills, follow me on Letterboxd, and I have 2 reviews on there. Scroll in my diary, look for them.
Yeah, or watch our
and then watch our discussion. We go
Yeah.
hard. We don't take these discussions lightly.
No,
even whether we like them or dislike them or we're somewhere in a gray area, we unpack the shit. So there you go. How about you, Zach?
Well,
Anything else? Yeah, you already said. So what do you want to say now?
Well, what do we got going on next week?
It's another thing, right? That happened the 6th time.
It's another part 6. Yes.
And it's the one with the other guy.
Yeah.
And he dies. Or he's dead.
He's dead.
Freddy's dead. The Final Nightmare.
Yes. We are doing that next. It's our Jason. This is what it is. Like
Jason lives. Freddy's dead.
Yeah. This week, Jason lives. Next week, Freddy's dead.
Freddy's dead.
So
and nobody says Jason lives in this movie. They should have.
Yeah.
Jason lives.
You can't be alive.
That would have been great.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we will be right back.